Gotcha.
We're on. So you're Chase.
Sir.
Jose Pablo. Ramon. You're Ramon? Ring. Ramon, okay. Jacqueline.
Here.
Okay.
Start camera.
Okay. Naisha. Bashar. No Bashar. Armando. I don't see Armando here. Alec, I saw you here. Connor.
I texted you.
John, you're there. Juliana's not here. Chanel, I don't see Chanel. Judson. Andrew, I saw you. Sam. Sam. Laurel. L'Oreal.
Yeah.
L'Oreal. Okay. L'Oreal. Okay. You are.
I was Cole.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see you. Did I call it Jonathan? What's your last name, Jonathan?
Adler.
I did. You were the first guy I called.
I reckon.
You reckon?
Yeah.
You were not the first person I called. You were the first guy I called. Okay. Is there anyone else in here I haven't called?
Jackson.
Isabel.
You didn't call me?
No, he did.
This is Judson right here.
I just turned it on.
You just turned it on? Judson Robertson?
You are Jose Pablo. So is it Jose or Jose Pablo? Okay, and we have an Adam. We have an Adam. Armando's not here. Do we have a Bashar? And Chanel, I didn't see, and do we have a Sam? Okay. Hey,
Two portions.
listen, welcome. Welcome. If you got your computers on, I'd appreciate it if you put them down. I'll tell you when you need to have them up, okay? I need eyes up here. So, that's just the way we work, all right? You'll have time. I think I sent 2 emails out to that effect. So I can't be up here if you guys aren't looking at me. So I'm looking at you. This is 5895. It's real estate financial modeling, or I would say financial modeling for real estate. I don't know why it's backwards, okay? This class has been in the program for some time. It's the first time I teach it. So for me, it's a learning experience as well. I did teach the investments class once upon a time, and what investments was at that point, about 8 or 9 years ago, was essentially what this class is. So it's not new material for me, but it is a new course. And the program's been tweaked around, so we cover different things in different courses. My goal is to complement all the other learning that you do in the other classes that you have. We may overlap in certain areas. There may be things, especially those of you that are taking the finance class right now. It's the finance, right? 5880? There may be things we overlap. Hopefully that overlap will reinforce concepts. I'll jump ahead. I've been teaching in the program. I think I'm the longest tenured, and I'm not tenured, but I'm the longest serving instructor in the program. When we started the MSRED 10 years ago, I started teaching in the first, with the first cohort. I've seen a lot of students come and go. The one thing that I've continued to see, especially a tool that I think students need to have a good command of, are Excel and modeling skills. Hopefully, I'm not an expert, not a power user, but I feel comfortable enough in using Excel in the industry to hopefully be able to share some of the skills and some of the tools and some of the techniques that I use to help you as you go out into the workplace. Okay, so hopefully with what I teach, with what Dr. Forgy and some of the other instructors are teaching, you're going to have the tools that you need. And again, we're going to go nice and slow in this class because I'm very concerned about the fact that a lot of students feel intimidated by Excel. They feel intimidated playing with numbers. They feel intimidated manipulating and projecting. The example I use is I started riding I don't ride motorcycles anymore. I fell too much. So I was like, but I used to ride with friends in Spain when I would go on vacation, and I always felt that the motorcycle was taking me. So I didn't grow up riding. I rode bicycles, And sure enough, when it was taking me, I didn't feel comfortable. And eventually I would fall and fall and fall, and I got tired of falling, so I don't ride anymore. I think that happens with Excel with people. Sometimes the tool overpowers them. And Excel is an incredible tool, and the ability to model and to take numbers and make them do whatever you want them to do is an incredibly potent, a tool to have at work. But if the tool controls you, if it owns you as opposed to you owning the tool, then you got a problem. So hopefully we'll be able to overcome that, okay? So I'll use some PowerPoints in this class sometimes, but not all the time. So this is who I am, and this is how you get a hold of me, okay? js2195@nova.edu. I think all of you should have had at least 2 emails from me so far. I think I only got a couple hellos back, so I like to communicate with students. Feel free to reach out to me. If it's important, if it's necessary, and I put in the syllabus, in the online syllabus, if we need to do office hours, I'll do office hours. I don't think it's going to be necessary. Most of the time it's difficult for you to get to the university, and it's difficult for me. But if we need to, we can get on the phone, or what I like to use is there's a GoToMeeting tool that the university makes available to us. It's an online video conferencing tool. We can share screens. We can do things. So if we really need to, if we can't solve the problem, if we can't get the information across, if we can't convey communication through email, then we can do a video conference. And if we really need to come, we can meet before class, we can meet after class, or we can meet during the week if it's necessary. I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think hopefully with the information that we share in class and the material that I send in advance, we'll be able to cover everything that we need, okay? I'm usually on. I don't anticipate traveling during the next 8 weeks. So, I'm usually on my computer all day. So if somebody writes to me, unless I got to go and research something, I should be able to get back to you straight away, okay? So, but I like communicating with students, right? It's really boring, and the learning process isn't very effective if it's a one-way monologue, right? So learning is definitely enhanced by, hey, professor, I saw this at work. Hey, I read this. What do you think? I was working through this, and I didn't get it. And so, I would encourage you to communicate, not only with me, but with all the other instructors. Why are we here? I mean, those of you who've had me in class before have seen this slide before, okay? And I'll stop here. We're here to learn. If you're not here to learn, you shouldn't be here. I'm going to be that bold, okay? After I'm getting old and cranky. This might be the last class I ever teach. Not like today, but this might be the last term. I've been saying it for a while, but it might be. If you don't want to learn, I'm going to look at all of you. If you really don't want to learn, there's a door. You're paying good money, really good money, and you're spending a whole day to come in here. And what you're coming here is to get a piece of paper and pay for a piece of paper. You could probably do an online program at another local university that starts with an F and ends in a U, and it's shorter and it's less money, and you're not going to learn as much. So if you're going to pay money and invest the time, put your effort into it. I'm going to bring it, okay? I'm going to give you the best I've got. I've worked on this class all week. All week. I wanted to prepare myself. If you guys don't come with that enthusiasm, you're not going to learn. And so what good is it to have a piece of paper that says, I got a degree from Nova Southeastern, and when your boss puts you to work, you don't know what to do. Or you got to call somebody else. So we're here to learn. Now, what's the problem with learning? If you knew it already, you wouldn't be here, right? So learning's not easy, right? Learning requires hard work, right? It requires, I don't know, I gotta click this thing, right? It requires listening. It requires reading and practice. You got to work on stuff, okay? You got to work on stuff. And you got to make mistakes. When you make mistakes, what did I just tell you before, John? If you said you got something wrong in the previous quiz, if you get something wrong and you go back and review, understanding what you did wrong, I can assure you that you're going to learn. When you fall on a bike, right, you figure out why you fell on the bike, you're not going to fall, hopefully, the next time that way, right? I said in one of the videos, and I'm going to talk about the videos in a second, in the videos that I prepared and sent out, because I started riding mountain bikes, motorcycles. I got off my road bike, and I don't use my road bike anymore. I just go on trails. What happens with trails when you ride on trails? It's hard, and there's all kinds of degrees of difficulty. If you don't practice, if you don't learn, if you don't watch other people, if you don't fall down, if you don't figure out why you fell down, right? If you don't go on YouTube and watch videos and have the guy show you how to take a turn, or how to take a curve, or how to do a jump, or how to go downstairs, and where to position, you're not going to learn. You're going to keep making the same mistakes. What's the thing? What was I think they say it was Einstein. I don't know if it was him or not, but what is insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So if you don't reflect back on what it was that you did wrong, how are you going to change it? Right? So we're here to learn. And listen, I've had on my to-do list since May to prepare for this class. Do you know I really sat down and like really started working on it? Monday. Because I'm no different, I'm human too, right? You gotta wait to, so, you know, one of my sisters was here all summer and she said to me, what are you gonna do today? I said, oh, I gotta work on my class. He goes, you know you're not gonna work on your class till like, it's like the week of the class. She goes, you do this every year. And I go, no, I'm really gonna do it this time. Well, yeah, he eventually gave up, but it's crunch time, right? So I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy to sit down and work. But if you don't do it, then you don't learn. It requires effort, okay? So that's a couple other things that I'm going to just go through a couple of these. Let me go back. So we do have a textbook here, okay? So we'll talk about the textbook in a second. I'm going to show you tools. If you watch the videos, you saw that I made mistakes. I don't know everything, and I forget things. And the older you get, the more you forget, okay? Just so that I can assure you of that. But what's important is to know where to find, what's the reference material. And that's the one thing that I would tell you from the entire program, not only from this class. You can't memorize everything that you pick up in all these classes. But if you know the kind of material that you have and say, hey, I don't remember about the styles of investing, but I know that in the textbook that I had for finance and investments and for modeling, there's a figure in chapter 1 or somewhere that talks about the different styles of investing. Let me brush up on that. You know, speaking of the book, who has the book? A bunch of you don't have the book. There was reading required today. If you don't have a book, how did you do the reading?
That was an audible version.
There was an audible version, okay? So you heard it, okay? My recommendation to anybody, I'm old-fashioned, is get this. You know why? You know what I have in my office? All my old textbooks. You know what I do with my old textbooks? I pull them out, like some of them that I'm going to show you. So it's great to listen to stuff, right? But there's nothing like reading to reinforce learning, okay? So you need this book. I mean, I have a nephew who's at FIU, and so I asked him a couple terms ago, did you buy your textbooks yet? No, I'm waiting for the first day of class. Why? No, because the instructor tells me if I really got to buy it or not. You got to buy it. You got to buy it for this class and for 2 other classes. You got to buy it. It costs money, but it's a tool, and it's a reference material, and it's something that's going to help you. This particular book is the first time we're using in the program. I've been going back and forth with the author's son, who's the one who does the marketing for this, for about 8 years. And frankly, since I got a hold of this book, and this was even before Dr. Forgy was here, it's probably an easier version. Those of you who've been in the program for a while have the Brueggemann book. This is probably an easier read. It's more succinct, okay? And it's probably more relevant. The other one's a little bit too academic. This is a pretty practical book. I recommend that you buy it. You will need to buy it. If you don't buy it, you're going to have a hard time passing this class, okay? Dr. Forgy just had a quiz. He checks answers. I don't care about the answer so much. I care about the methodology, okay? Especially when we get to Excel, I don't care whether you get to the right answer. I want to know how you built the spreadsheet. Because ultimately, when you build a spreadsheet, so I'm an instructor. How do I follow your logic? But forget me. What about your boss? What about your subordinates? What about your, bless you, what about your joint venture partners? What about the financial institution? You want a loan from a bank. They're going to say, give me the projections. What do they laugh when you give them your spreadsheet? What if the plumbing is so ugly in there? What if there's numbers that are hard-coded in there? Right? What kind of confidence are you going to instill? Right? You're going to say, hey, I'll give these guys money, they can't even build a spreadsheet. Right? So, methodology is critical in how you build your models, okay, going forward. So, I hate this particular presentation. So, listen, this is, but the beginning, all this stuff is in the, let me go through all these. So, this stuff's all in the syllabus, okay? You can see it. This stuff's all in the syllabus. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create an analytical framework in which we can figure out how to acquire and dispose of assets, how to manage and operate them, right? How to value assets. So the projections that we can have, or that we're going to prepare, have multiple uses. At the end of the day, we can figure out how much to pay for something. We can figure out what kind of return we get when we buy something. But it can also give us a concept of what something is worth. Or it can help us figure out if something's worth selling. And if we sell it, the question is going to be, what's it worth? Right? So, I got an email yesterday. I'm in several real estate funds with guys I used to work with. And so we've got an asset down in South Dade, and I got an email. It's on the market, right? But before it went on the market, they went and knocked on a couple of brokers' doors and said, what's it worth? Because we're not going to market without a price expectation, right? Because at the end of the day, they're managing, as a general partner, they're managing a return expectation that their investors have, and they're also managing their promoted interest in that investment. So, how did the brokers figure it out? How did the investment bankers figure out, the investment advisors figure out what the asset was worth? Did they call an appraiser, or did they do it themselves, right? So part of it is they themselves go through a current value, right? A net present value analysis of what that asset is worth, right? So we are going to work with a textbook. I'm going to go over that in a second, and we're going to work with Excel. So it's kind of like a couple of different concepts in the class, all right? So I'll talk a little bit more about that. Yeah, let me go back. So look, this class will evolve. I've got a concept of where we're going to go and what we're going to do. I'm going to walk through it. I sent you the syllabus. I'll walk you through the conceptual lesson plan program that I've got. But I can modify it based on how fast we can move, how fast you all want me to move. One of the things that's difficult is when I have a class with 26 students, right? You're not all at the same level, right? So it's very difficult at times to teach here and leave everybody behind. Unfortunately, if you teach all the way down here, then you bore a lot of people. So the goal is to try to teach somewhere in the middle and hopefully provide enough information. Pull some of the people up and not bore the people that are at the very top, okay? But I'm happy to modify, tailor, speed up, or slow down the class as we move along, okay? Depending upon what the needs are of the students and the interests of the students, okay? So here's the textbook, okay? Let me go back. Here's the textbook, guys. So Dr. Linneman, he teaches at Wharton, or he's semi-retired, I'm not really sure. Dr. Forgey's split up the chapters. We've got a certain number of chapters here. I think by week 5 we'll be done with the chapters we need to cover. What I envision during the first 5 weeks is that we will spend an hour, hour and a half of the class going over the textbook material. It's all information that complements the balance of the learning in the program. So the goal is to fully take advantage and leverage the entire book. All right, so Dr. Forgey's assigned certain chapters for us to go over. We'll go over chapters 1 and 2 today. Take a break, and then we'll change chips, and we'll get into a modeling program, okay? And you asked a question earlier. The goal is to try to, and we'll try to We'll try to build different elements and components, okay? But the goal is going to try to be to figure out how to capture and how to project revenues, how to project expenses, so ultimately we can get to NOI numbers that we can value, okay? Or we can figure out what return profiles look like, okay? So that's kind of what we're going to try to do. Along the way, we're going to reinforce net present or time value of money concepts. I know those of you doing finance or done the finance and investments class. We may double up on some of those, but guess what? Hopefully you'll walk out of here knowing this stuff better than we know it, okay? When you touch it with different instructors and different programs. So you got to have a book, guys. You got to have a book. Now, in my previous classes, I usually have made, the last few years, I've made the Wall Street Journal mandatory. I'm not going to make it mandatory. But you got to read the press. You got to read the press, right? If you don't know what's going on, how do you make investment decisions? How do you figure out if it's time to buy or sell? Are we late in the cycle? Are we late in a business cycle? Are we early or are we in the middle? Is now the time to start developing? No. Why do you say no?
Because every 10 years there's supposed to be a cycle and we've surpassed that.
Okay, so we've got, somebody say there's a timeline associated with something. Did I hear it's tariffs? Is that what I heard? Tariffs? Okay, so tariffs might have what? I think my personal view is tariffs are an excuse just to pile on, but they might have a negative impact on the economy, which will slow it down.
Forbes recently had an article about we're on the cusp of the biggest housing boom ever.
Boom or bust?
Boom.
Boom.
Like building boom.
Like building boom.
Yeah, Forbes just had an article about it.
Okay, all right. So here's the thing. I've got some of my old colleagues run a pretty sizable home building business. And I had lunch with one of the guys this week. They're doing well. Why do you think they're doing well? I asked a question.
Well, no, I just have a comment. I mean, this 10-year cycle thing, there's some economies like Australia that have experienced a boom for 27 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's understandable that they're getting most of their transactions from the Chinese and the Asian market, but this 10-year cycle thing is just, you know, arbitrary because that's what we've been experiencing here in the United States, but in other areas, it proves different.
Yeah.
You know.
So let me address that, and then we'll come back to it. Now, I'm not a believer that cycles are necessarily driven by time, and I think history will prove that some cycles are short and some are longer. Australia is a unique economy and can't be compared to the U.S. It's 20 million people, it's mineral rich, and it has been the source of all the flight capital from China for the last, 30 years, okay?
If not more.
If not more, okay? So there's a lot of reasons why that economy is radically different than this one. To your point, and I think the question I asked, why is home building potentially, or why would some people perceive that it's on the cusp of historic highs? I mean, those of you who've had my class, I haven't asked a question yet. Where's the 10-year Treasury today?
Is that at 197 or 179?
174.
So it's like, I didn't see this morning, 17 something,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So with 10-year risk-free treasuries, and we're not going to go into risk-free and all that in this class, we might, but with 10-year, with long-term risk-free interest rates at 1.7%, where are mortgage rates today?
Around 3.
Give me a number.
3.7. 4.
You work at Lennar, don't you? Or,
Without the finance portion.
okay.
Around
You're
3.
looking to buy a house? I'm not looking. So I think jumbo rates are like at 3.8, 3.9, and then regular rates are down around 3.7, something like that. I mean, so that's like free money. That's like free money, right? So why are people building a lot of houses? Because they're affordable. Because when you work back to what people can pay every month, right, then it kind of makes sense, right? Now, I wish we were, I used to teach a capital markets class where you could see there's two sides to interest rates. There's a side when you borrow money, it's great to have low rates, right?
Yeah.
But when you lend, so I'm an old man, what do old people do?
You lend.
You invest, right? You're loaning money, right? What do I live off of?
Interest.
Really low rates, right?
Yeah.
So you know, I've got it, you know, and I throw stuff out. I'm not right nor wrong. I'll just share with you some of the things I do investment-wise. I have been, because I tend to believe we are later cycle than earlier cycle. I don't know when the cycle ends. I don't know when we turn. I don't know how deep the downturn is. But I have been slowly, you know, minimizing long-term holdings, and I'm a lot shorter. And so you can't have cash, because cash doesn't yield anything. So I've got a ladder of T-bills. I don't go out more than a year. They tend to expire every couple of weeks. I do small little, you know, T-bills. So when I started doing this about 8 or 9 months ago, the weighted average yield of the portfolio was like 2.4%. It's like down to like 1.7. As maturities have come and I've reinvested. So how do I live? I mean, Nova doesn't pay anything. I mean, that's wrong. Can you turn that off a second, please? No. I don't even pay for my gas. I had to stop at the Microsoft store to buy this thing here to connect my computer. No, so, sorry, this is all in jest, okay? No, but I'm exaggerating the point. The point is, well, low interest rates are good for certain people in the economy, right? And it would be great to spend the time on savers and users of money, right? But definitely we're at a point where home building is very affordable, okay? And these guys that used to work with me have seen a really incredible boom and a very long cycle. And they really pinned it on interest rates. And when interest rates started creeping up late last year, they saw orders like slow down. And then interest rates started coming back down again, and it's kind of crept back up. So definitely home buying is very interest rate sensitive, okay? So I don't know. Hopefully we can talk about some of these things. I don't want to bias everyone. I think, to your point, I don't know how long cycles are, Kenny, but what I will tell you is there are cycles. You can't just eat all the time. You got to digest every now and then, okay? That doesn't mean you need to have these black swan events like we had in 2007, 2008. We don't need to see asset values deteriorate 30, 40%. We don't need to see the kind of credit defaults that we've seen. That's not normal either, okay? But what is normal is that after an expansion or a period of expansion, there is a time to absorb. And let's put it in real estate terms. Let's put it in South Florida local real estate terms. 2005, 2006. Does anybody know how large the office market is in South Florida? Do we have any idea? We should. You guys all want to work here, don't you? You guys want to work in real estate? Okay, so let's focus in, because real estate is very, very local. Let's talk about specific submarkets. So in what is downtown Miami and Brickell, which are two different submarkets, there were roughly 21, 22 million square feet. What's occupancy in an office market? Does anybody know? Does anybody know what normal occupancy is in office?
80%.
Try door number 2. Who said 80? Try a little more.
Oh, little.
Nationally.
Oh, it's like 97.
No, so that's like industrial or multifamily. Office is closer to 85. Okay, now, Tale of Two Cities. You read the book. What kind of office? Or you heard the book. What kind of, when we talk about office, what do we talk about? I'm just saving part of the lecture for later. What do we talk about? We talk about different kind of assets, right?
CBDs,
What are the two big?
high-rise, mid-rise.
Well, mid-rise, we don't talk about the concept of mid-rise in office. We talk about that in multifamily. So CBD is one, which tends to be high-rise, and we also talk about suburban. Okay, two totally different markets. In the CBDs of the country, you tend to have very high occupancy rates. So they tend to be in the 90s. But suburban is typically lower, in the 80s. Okay? Now, maybe not every major metro has CBD office with that kind of occupancy, okay? But the major, 24-hour cities will see significantly higher occupancy in CBD than you see in suburban. Now, let's go back to Miami. there's 26 or whatever, call it 25 million square feet in the entire inventory between downtown and Brickell. Guy on 14th Street in Brickell decides he's going to build a 600,000 square foot office building. Okay. Another guy right at the southern tip, right by the Miami River, decides he's going to put up 600,000 square feet, right? And then this other lady in the middle of Brickell she wants to put 600,000 square feet. So all of a sudden, at the same time, 3 office towers come up with 1.8 million square feet of supply. Can the market absorb all that?
Depends on its absorption rate.
Okay. If the market is 25 million square feet,
And they're adding another 1.8.
yeah, what do you think happened? So we had an economic slowdown. It was all late cycle anyway, but rents came down like 25 or 30%. And what do you think occupancies? What happened with occupancy? Went way down, or vacancy went way up, because it's very difficult to absorb all of that product at one time. And think of that in a more macroeconomic way, right? We build machinery, right? We exploit mines, we build housing, right? We build retail product. At a certain point, you got to let growth catch up to it, right? And then there's all other things happening. You talked about Australia, all this immigration going in. What's happening with immigration in this country? Are we bringing in as many people as we used to bring in? I even see people leaving.
Yep.
And so what does that, how does that impact housing in certain markets?
Creates vacancies.
Or if it doesn't create vacancies, it definitely should reduce the number of new households being created, right? And the supply requirement. So there's a lot. That's a problem. The economy's not like a box that you could just sit there, you know, do your algorithm. What's the promise of artificial intelligence and all that, right? We'll just plug it in. We'll have some, you know, gearheads do some sort of algorithm, and it'll give us the answer. Well, we don't know. We know there's certain factors that impact. Okay, so anyway, I don't want to bias you on that. So read the journal. If you don't read the journal, read the Financial Times, read the Economist, read the New York Times financial section, but read something. Okay, read your local paper, read the financial press. And if you can, read something international so you can see how the rest of the world functions and how the rest of the world views this country. Okay, that would be my recommendation. Okay, you're not going to use a calculator here because we want to do Excel. Dr. Forgy uses the TI. I don't know the TI. I use this one, but I don't even use this one anymore because I just use Excel all the time. This is the HP 12C.
Yeah, that's what we have.
That's what we use.
Oh, I thought he had a TI here earlier. Okay, whatever. So, if you've got a question, I know the keystrokes on this one. And what you definitely need is you need Microsoft Office, and you really need, okay, you need Excel. Okay, so, grades. Okay. 3 things are going to determine your grades, okay? Attendance and preparation and participation, okay? Quizzes, we're going to have a quiz in every class. We're going to have a quiz in every class, and the quiz is always going to be on the reading material in the lecture. I can't cover everything that you're supposed to read in class, because you're going to have to read more than what I can cover in class. I'll try to cover the salient points of things that are important. But you got to read, so you can do well on the quizzes. Those of you who've done my class know that quizzes will be small. There'll be a quiz today. I know you're really excited about it. It's only like 7 or 8 questions. It's really easy. And I've even made it easy. I've even printed it for you. I'm not even going to read it out. Usually I used to like reading out the questions so that you would listen to the questions, okay? And then we're going to have projects. Most of them we'll do in class. You'll submit them to me, okay? And some might be take home, okay? So, you know, we'll just figure it out as we go along, all right? So, if we can do them all in class, we'll do them all in class, but there's some, this is a preliminary weighting, but I'm actually thinking that I'm going to make attendance and participation 40% and quizzes and project 30 each, okay? Those of you who've had my classes before know that I have a matrix, and I try to update it every week, and I send it out to the students so you can figure out every week where you are. So there's no, sort of guessing, okay? So you get points for showing up. Pretty simple, 50 points. You read, you show up, you gotta have to class. Your quiz, you should get 100 because you paid attention. And in the projects, they should be easy. Now, let me jump ahead to that. I took the time to do 4 little, very simple, early, basic Excel stuff today. I sent out the videos. I think as of this morning, a couple videos had like 1 or 2 views. So I expect that you all feel very comfortable with Excel, and you should be able to work on. We can quickly move to more complex topics. I will go over some of that in class today, but I can't go over the entire 2 hours video that I sent. I took the time to put it together. To record 2 hours of video take a lot more hours than 2, because I got to sit down and figure out how I'm going to break up the material, how to go over it, pull stuff together. My goal is to continue to do it. If I find that people are not looking at the videos, then maybe I shouldn't, take the time to do it. But they're there for you guys to have and to use as reference. Maybe they're slow. Maybe I talk with a dull voice. I don't know. But they're there. And I can tell you, most of the stuff I know from Excel, I've learned that way. I go to YouTube when I can't figure out something, and I watch some boring guy do the keystrokes and go, wow, that's how you do it, So anyway, they're there for you. They're there for you. So I will go over during the week and send out a video with some of the material we're going to cover, so that when we get to class, while I cover some of it, you will have already practiced and taken a look at what it is that we're going to cover. So if next week we go over time value of money issues, you should expect to see some sort of video during the week where I go through time value of money concepts and the functions that you would use in Excel to calculate things. For most of you, that should be easy. You should know the keystrokes already with your HP, and you may already know the keystrokes or the functions in Excel. But I'll go on ahead and do that because our textbook doesn't really go into that much. Okay, so this stuff is like right out of Nova. I didn't create this. Okay, so that's whatever the grading scale is. Okay, but I mean, you figure out you could easily get yourself up here, right, into a B area by showing up and doing well on your quizzes, right? You got 75 points there. Yeah, you haven't even done an Excel thing yet, and get yourself up to an A. Relatively easy, okay? But you got to do the work. I tell you this: if you don't do the work, okay, your quizzes are going to be here, not here. Okay? And if you watch the videos and pay attention, you should be able to do your projects here, just like your quizzes should be here. Okay? So figure out where you want to be. But more important, figure out what you want to learn. Right? I mean, that's why you're here. That's why we're here. And I'm sorry if some of my former students have jaded me at times. I get a lot of people that come and they're happy to be here. They want to be here on Saturday, but you got to do work during the week. You got to. I've done a master's while I'm working. I've done it. I know what it takes. I spent a year without traveling, which is what I like to do most. I spent a year where I'm dogged to it. To this day, I'll still get up at 3 in the morning and go to my office and work, because that's when I used to work. Get up to do my work. But I think I learned. So I'm speaking from experience, I think. So I'm going to try to do what I can so that you learn and to help you. But you got to do your bit. I can't learn for you. I can't do the work for you. The hard work to learn has to come from you. You got to show up to class. If you don't show up to class, you don't get 50 points. You can't watch it on YouTube and pass the class. Okay? Yeah, so if there is, so you got to read before you get to class. Okay, so I'll just harp on this for a second. So if you have an assignment that is a take-home assignment, and I'm guessing that by sessions 5, 6, 7, and 8, we'll have take-home assignments as opposed to in class, or we'll have a combination thereof, okay? I need help. There'll be a time after class, you guys will pop open your laptops, you can do your work, you can follow along. I'm not going to go behind you and see if you're chatting or doing whatever it is, or watching what's going on, whatever game, or I think it was when you were, your last class with me, no, not that I forget these things, everybody was on their damn phones. And I got really upset. And well, somebody tells me at the end, well, Brazil was playing what? Well, I wanted to see it too. At least we could put had it on the side, and then I could have seen it too. But nobody's paying attention. It's very difficult to talk to like the top of your head. I always do this to people, like, you know, it's like, okay, hold on. I got a text. I got a friend of mine. Hold on a second, guys. Here, I got a text from my sister. Hold on. It says, hope your class is going well today. Okay. That's pretty rude, right? You don't want me to stop by and do this, right?
I understand.
You get it? Okay. I'm glad, Isabel, you understand. I hope that everybody else does as well. But I keep harping on it because it's gotten worse over the years, okay? It's gotten worse. I have a friend of mine is the head of the finance program at UM. And he told me that what they've done in their program now is electronics are specifically excluded from their classrooms in their totality unless an instructor allows them. So it used to be on the instructor to then say, no, you can't bring it in, and then they would say, oh, but everybody else lets us have it, okay? And it's a problem of attention. I mean, I was saying, what is it? If you have a phone in your hand and you're young, the tendency is that you grab your phone every 7 seconds to look for, a notification. So, like, how do you retain things, right? How do you? So, anyway, I have trouble retaining stuff, and I don't grab my phone every. Okay, so look, if you don't understand something, stop me and ask. If I say something that sounds wrong, I may very well have said something wrong. Sometimes you get up here and something comes out backwards, okay? Or, okay, so stop. No, wait a minute. Professor, you got it backwards. You got it wrong. If something doesn't make sense, stop. Ask, okay? And there's no such thing as a dumb question. You've heard that, right? And if you don't think you got it, stop me. Hey, show me that. Especially when I'm sitting down later on, just playing around with Excel. Just like somebody could say to me, Professor, I get to that. Excel has a lot of different ways to get to the same thing. You might have a function key, you might have a shortcut, you might right-click on something, you might have a button. We all work differently. It's okay for somebody to say, hey, Professor, you right-clicked on that and got there, but if you go to the ribbon and you pull that, then everybody learns. And some people might find it's easier to go to a ribbon than a right-click. Or I might go and go to the ribbon for certain things, and you can right-click on it and get to it. So it's okay to share information, okay? Participation will enhance the learning process. Participation will enhance the learning process, okay? So, so I already talked about this. We're going to do projects in class. If there are take-home case studies or projects, you need to turn them in by Thursday at 3 o'clock, okay? You need to, because I got to review them before class. Okay? Quizzes where, each class is going to have a quiz. It's going to cover reading material, lectures, etc. If you do all your material, you can get 100. Okay. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the next 3 or 4 slides. There's like 5 or 6 pages on the syllabus. For some reason, and I don't know why, for some reason, and I've been doing this 10 years, for some reason, almost every term, I wind up getting material from students that is not their own. There's nothing wrong with using other people's material as a reference source. Okay? So, this isn't a research-based class, so you're not going to be submitting work that you go into a library and, or going into Google, which is not a library, but copying and pasting something. Get used to giving people credit for the work that they do. When something's not original, it's okay to not use original material. We're not I don't have any original material. Everything I have, I got from somebody else. I mean, I think I said that in one of the videos that I recorded. So, give people credit. Now, what I can't have is, especially when we start getting into take-home assignments, it's not that difficult for me to figure out when both answers are the same. When I'm looking at 25 or 26 submissions, and I got this last term too. You know, and same formatting, same answers. And you know what's easy? When it's the wrong answer and it's the same wrong answer, that's the easiest one to track. Okay? And then when you see that, I'll show you. I know tricks, I'll show you, it's in a video. You know, Excel has some audit tools. You can see who creates spreadsheets and how long you worked on them and who edited them. I mean, you could easily track this. Yeah, Miriam.
You cannot work with one of your friends together, study?
So one thing is, and I could say, you can, Miriam, you can study with anybody that you want, okay? So you can study, you can prepare, right? But you got to do your own work, right? So we're not doing group assignments here. If there's a take-home case study, it's not a group assignment. There are group assignments in other classes. I've had group assignments in certain classes. We may do some of the in-class assignments at the end of the term as a group. And if I assign them as a group, then you can. But the problem with group assignments is, and I've been to this movie, is there'll be 4 of you. Will all 4 people do the same amount of work? Will all 4 people do the same amount of learning? Okay? And so, in this particular class, because I think we're doing things that are critical to what the real estate development program is, to do a projection as a group is not going to help you individually. I think this class really lends itself much more to an individualized assignment rather than group assignments. Does that answer it? Okay. Hey, if you've got any questions, right, ask me. Okay? I'm here to help you learn. Do I have any questions on ground rules? No questions on ground rules. I'm going to quickly jump because time's moving. Yes, sir. Ramon.
What on Canvas? You're on Canvas?
I'm not going to use Canvas in this class at all. At all. So if I communicate with you, it's going to be directly through your Nova email. And you communicate with me with my Nova email account. I'm not using Canvas. Frankly, I started using Blackboard, which is what the university had before. And then they switched on Canvas. There's a tremendous amount of upfront time in putting a course onto a platform like that. And when you teach a class once, and I have no guarantee that I'm going to teach this class next year, it's hundreds of hours to put a class in that I may never reap the benefits of. Okay, so if you want to communicate, email, and we'll do whatever we need to do. Okay, Bashar.
Are submissions done through emails then?
Emails. Miriam, that was a question.
You mentioned you were selling one of your investments. I was just curious to what kind of investment that was. Like, is it multifamily or? So
that particular, I'm just a limited partner, man. I'm like a small little guy in a fund. That particular asset is a primarily retail. I'm going to call it a Class B asset. It's on US 1 in South Dade. And it does have an office component to it, so it is mixed use in that sense. And it was purchased, it was sort of the traditional, Brian. It was the traditional, like value add. We'll talk about that later on today. So we had to get our hands dirty. The guys working had to get their hands dirty, get rid of some tenants, bring some new tenants in. Do a fair amount of cleaning up. There were issues with parking there, having to work with the village on parking, having to identify some additional land, because retail is very parking heavy, and that particular site was underparked, and so that's what it is. We've had it probably about 4 or 5 years. I'd say it's probably not a high performer, so I don't want to jump too far ahead, but. One of the opportunities that you have, or the risks that you have with real estate assets is there are market opportunities, right? Can you bring rents up? At the end of it, can you create value? And can you increase occupancy? Can you decrease costs? And can you increase revenues? Difficult business, you know, really difficult. I would tell you that that's not an asset that they've done great at. So the occupancy, they've been able to basically stabilize. They've gotten rents up a little bit, but not a lot. And nor do I think that the sort of credit profile of the tenants is any better than it was before. So it's a decision that the guys, this particular fund started in 2011. And not to bias the thinking, but some of us that talk to these guys sporadically tell them 8 years later, it's time to be sellers, not buyers. So it's a pruning of what's in the portfolio. Okay? Any other questions? No? Okay, just on the syllabus really quick. The only thing I want to go on the syllabus, so, you know, it's got all the, I've had to change it because like Nova makes you do all these mission statements and exit competencies and the course learning objectives. Okay, carry out financial modeling on platforms such as Excel. I do want to mention, this class will complement what you do in Argus, what you've done in Argus. Okay, Excel is not a substitute for Argus in the real estate industry. I was just in Spain. I had lunch with a friend of mine. His son is now running their family's sort of real estate family office. And I asked him if they used Argus, and he said no. And I said, how can you not use Argus? Well, you know, we're old-fashioned. Well, you can be old-fashioned, but, you know, if you really want to take the family office to the next level, if you really want to start looking for institutional type capital on the debt side, and ultimately if you want to attract equity partners, you got to be in Argus. Okay, so they tend to work well together. Build models in Argus, dump them to Excel, and overlay whatever you want on, especially in the development side. Okay, but composed development and property level forecast. So we're going to focus most of the class on property level operating assets, but we will do some development pro formas here as well. Okay, and utilize these forecasts to assist in valuation, negotiation, and structuring of real estate transactions. Okay, and hopefully that complements some of the work that you're doing in the finance and in the investments class. I will jump all the way to the last 2 pages of the syllabus, the last 3 pages of the syllabus. Just basically walk through the preliminary lesson plan, okay? Today, what are we going to do today? Introductory session, review of class contents, formats, expectations, as well as discussions on the introductory subject, and we're going to do an Excel primer, okay? That's basically it, but you'll see what your advanced reading is. I'll reaffirm it during the week, okay? I'll let you know, yes, next week you do need to read chapters 3 and supplemental chapters 1 and 1A. I'm already telling you that right now. You do need to do that. You will have a quiz on it, and we will cover the material in class, all right? And we will definitely go over time value of money issues next week. We'll probably extend that. I'm probably going to focus that 2 weeks. It might be slow for some of you, okay, but hopefully we get a good handle on Excel, and we'll get a good handle on time value of money issues before we really dive head on into building some models, okay? And then you can see the rest of it. If you have a submission that you need to make, there's a cover page that, I don't know if other instructors require it or not. I require that you submit what NOVA requires, which is a certificate of authorship, okay? When you say, this is my work, I did it, okay, and I stand behind it, okay? So you can just copy and paste that, and you can submit it with whatever submissions that you have that are take-home. If we do something in class, you don't need to send them. Any questions on the syllabus? No? Okay.
There's instructions on where to get the cover page from.
You can just copy and paste it from there. Okay? So if you go on it, I think I just have to hit that. Okay. Let's power it down. Okay. So just a couple more things. The classes are 4 hours. I'll try to shoot for a break about the middle. So what we'll try to do is, like today, we'll go through the textbook material, take a break, 5, 10 minutes. If you do need to use your phone, if you need to make a call, like we're all adults, we've got stuff going on in our lives, step out. I have no problem. Step out, you stand up, go to the restroom, you need to get something to eat, you need fresh air, you're tired of my voice, whatever the issue is, just go. And when you come back, if you've got the doubt as to whether you missed something of importance, I have no problem with you raising your hand and saying, did we miss something, okay? And I'm happy to either repeat it or say, hey, just stick around afterwards and I'll cover it, okay? So, there's more material than we got time to do in this class. We got 4 hours, so that's why I insist on doing your work during the week, okay? As with every course that I teach, there's much more material than we can ever cover, okay? That's it. Are there any particular things that you want to get out of the class? I mean, you've looked at the syllabus, you've heard a little bit. Some of you are new? Is there anybody new in the program? Oh, 1 second. Is there new? Like this is your first weekend?
No.
Or you started in September?
This is my first day.
So this is your first day?
Yeah.
Are you going to come back next week?
I think so.
You think so?
First day.
First day. So we got 2 first day, 3 first, welcome. 3 first day people, and you just started a few weeks ago. Anybody?
Few months ago.
A few months ago as well.
Same thing.
So we got about 5 or 6. We used to do the program lockstep. So everybody would come in at the same time. That would make it easier, in a way, to go along. But then we get people that then can't wait a year or want to start early. So we try to accommodate everybody, okay? So some things you might just go, what's this guy talking about? Okay, and maybe some of your classmates have already heard it. Just stop and say, hey, what are you talking about? Okay? So, yes, sir. You have
yeah, in terms of like what we want out of the class, so very, very like fresh into real estate, not personally focused on like the agent or like broker side, but more so what you were saying along the lines of if you go and bring deals to investors, like what are the investors looking for in your financial modeling to actually get the deals funded?
Okay. So yeah, so that's a good point, and we'll focus on that. Let me tell you my personal focus, okay, or my background. I'll tell you, I'm a CPA by background, so my formation, I have a bachelor's in accounting and finance from Fordham in New York. I started in the public accounting world, so I worked 7 years at Price Waterhouse. I did 5 here in Miami. I did 2 in Barcelona. And then I went into private industry for a while. I eventually made my way to real estate. I have a master's in finance. But my focus has always been more on the financial and operational sides of businesses. I'm not a sales guy. So you're not going to hear a lot of, I just don't say the nice things. I don't sell the opportunity. I tend to see the problem and try to fix it. No, it takes different types to make a company work, right? You need to have visionaries. I'm probably not a visionary. You need to have people that can build it. I'm probably more along those lines. And then you need to have people that can sell it. Okay? So, a company has to have a balance. So, what you're going to hear from me most of the time is going to have much more of a financial perspective. And so, when I look at a model, I'm looking at, a bank's going to look at it. What are they going to ask me? An investor's going to look at it. What are they going to ask me? All right? A development partner's going to look at it. What are they going to ask me? So, are we going to be able to develop, in this particular class, a model that you can take to a sophisticated institutional investor? We probably won't quite get there, okay? I will show you some things towards the end that look like packages, and if you're that interested, I can bring some of the packages that we put together at work so that you can see what those packages look like. And you'll see that they're not, they are not any more sophisticated. They just provide a lot more detailed information.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
Creating models for underwriting deals quickly, more efficiently.
Yeah. Right now. So one of the things that I had lunch with a friend of mine a few weeks ago, and this is a really bright guy. He's a CFA. He was running a $600 million emerging market equities fund. And, you know, this is what happens in life. He had horrible results. What happened? Bunch of redemptions. What happened? He lost his job. You know, they closed the fund, no job. So he got together with some of the guys and he said, no, we can raise money from other fools, right? So they did that for a while. Shitty returns. Got redemptions. So he's out of a job. So what do a lot of people, I shouldn't say this, but what do a lot of people do when they can't get a job? Oh, I'll get into real estate. That's easy. Well, real estate, yeah, it is easy, but it's like any other business. It's not really that easy. So what he tells me is, he says, yeah, I bought these Excel models from this guy. And so like now I just like, boom, I just like plug away and it tells me what I should pay for. Francisco, dude, you got a master's, you're a CFA, you've been running a $600 million fund. I mean, you're 60 years old and you're buying like a $59 Excel spreadsheet from somebody. Build your own, man. So why am I telling you this? I will show you some of the things that we've done at work. You will build some things at the end, especially when we get to development. I will not give you a template. I will share some very basic bits that you can build from. But I'm a believer that the power of Excel is that you can do whatever you want with it. So if you want a canned solution, just use Argus, right? But Excel, if you don't build it, it's very difficult to ultimately own it. I have a really, really intricate multifamily model that I got from a former student who was a multifamily project manager. It's awesome, but you can't just take that and build a multifamily model. It was very targeted to a development that he was working on.
Okay.
So I'm not just going to give you, you know, something that you can download from the internet for 49 bucks. Okay? Hopefully I'll give you the tools that you can build something that you could sell to somebody for 59 bucks or 69 bucks or $99.99 and throw in a clock radio and a tie and, you know, whatever else. But we'll do stuff like that.
What is redemption? You kept saying redemptions. What are redemptions?
So redemption, somebody says, give me my money back.
Gotcha.
So we had a guy come talk to us in the program about 7 or 8 years ago that was an institutional money manager, well, institutional real estate manager from Germany. And he asked the question, why don't real estate development programs teach a portfolio management or an asset management class? And that was a really good question, and we don't. So we now here at Nova have a property management undergraduate program, so we teach about property management. But we're going to talk about asset management. We'll talk a little bit about asset management concepts in a bit. That particular guy is now, he's developed the class and he's teaching it at UCF. He lives up in Orlando now and he's actually teaching that. So asset management is when people give you money and you manage it for them, right? When you are in an institutional asset management model, I don't go over this in this class, but there's something which we refer to as the quadrant in real estate. Has anybody ever heard of that? Some of you in my previous classes would have heard it. So the real estate quadrant is, you can basically take a look. This is not an accounting class, but I want to give you the San Miguel balance sheet, okay? Real simple, okay? Assets are on the left, liabilities and equity are on the right. Really simple, okay? Assets equal, right? Liabilities plus owner's equity. That's the algebraic equation under which accounting is built. Pretty simple. If you guys know that, and you know debits are on the left and credits are on the right, you got 80% of accounting down. It's not any more complicated than that. So, building on your question, when we talk about the quadrant of real estate, we really take a look at the capital side, okay? The capital stack. And when we take a look at the capital stack, we talk about private and public. So we can talk about private debt and public debt, and we can talk about private equity and public equity. So the easiest thing to talk about is public equities. What are public equities? What are public equities in context of real estate? REITs. So there are still a couple of REOCs, real estate operating companies out there, but REITs are a very tax efficient way of owning real estate. And so in the context of the real estate quadrant, public equities are REITs, okay? So it's ownership in a company that is in the public domain. Trades on an exchange, you can buy and sell individual units, okay? So that's one of the things that's in the textbook. First question, let's just jump on ahead. How big is the commercial real estate realm or world? How big is it? How much commercial real estate is there in this country? Billions and billions, right? Any idea? The book has a number. I don't agree with a number in the book, but how big? We don't know. Did we read the book? He's looking quickly. The book says 4 trillion, okay? I used to accumulate this data. So I did used to have some proprietary research. I used to accumulate it when I taught the capital markets class. I stopped doing it because it takes a tremendous amount of time to put this pie together. But probably by 2015, I was closer to $7 trillion, okay? In commercial real estate. Call it whatever you want. What is important to understand from that is how much of that capital stack, right? So if assets are 7 trillion, capital must equal 7 trillion also, right? So of that 7 trillion or 4 trillion that the book has, how much is debt and how much is equity? What's the traditional leverage ratio in commercial real estate in this country? 20/80. That sounds more like a residential model to me. So maximum you're going to get in this country, especially, maybe credit is deteriorating a little bit. You might be able to get more. But 70/30 is probably a simpler number to come out of the box. The last time I calculated this, I was actually down to about 65/35, okay? In fact, what happened was, if you look at pre-2007 data, we were actually about 75% levered. What happened? Values deteriorated, equity components went down, okay? Creditors ran out the door, asset values went down, everything got reshuffled, and we wound up like at a 60/40, okay? And then over the last few years, leverage has been creeping up. But let's say that leverage is 70%. Who holds most of that debt? So, well, who in particular would be institutional investors? I mean, in reality, it's probably commercial banks probably hold the lion's share of commercial real estate debt. But you've got banks,
Right.
you've got life insurance companies,
Right.
okay? You do have, there are some private equity funds out there that provide mezz capital. There are hedge funds that provide real estate debt. So, but the lion's share of debt is in the private domain, okay? So the lion's share of the 70% is in the private domain, okay? Public debt, is there public debt in real estate?
I just had a quick question. So as far as the 70/30, or what you just said in a commercial deal, obviously, you know, there's lending, there's the debt, and there's the equity. What exactly would you classify as equity other than just the actual investor who put his own equity in? Like if he raises his own capital for like a down payment or whatever on that, is that included in the?
Yeah. So
what would be included in equity?
Yes, I used to teach this capital markets class that really broke down debt and equity. So debt is a priority interest, right, in underlying real estate. So it is a hopefully secured. Okay? Debt is a claim against an asset. Equity is the residual that is left over after all claims are satisfied. You can look at it like this accounting formula. So, what is equity? It's what's left over after liabilities are subtracted from assets. So, to your point, everything is equity that isn't debt. So I would define debt first. I'd say, what is debt? Debt is what you owe a third party, when somebody has a claim on an underlying asset, okay? And what's equity? What's left over. So in the context of real estate, it could be a down payment that you put in, right? It could be debt that you've repaid, which is now less debt, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
No?
Kind of, I mean,
No, ask it again now.
no, really, like, I guess my question was, you know, I understand, you know, debt and equity, but like, as equity in like some of these transactions, I know that sometimes when you're raising money, and then an additional to the amount of money that you're putting down in as equity per se, then you're in a debt. But then, for example, let's say you have like 5 or 6 partners in on the deal. If all those partners are putting money in the deal, then is that all equity then?
It depends how it's structured.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, what happens a lot of times in institutional transactions is that,
I guess it just depends from deal to deal.
I mean, if they're putting their own money and they're still getting debt, then that would be equity, no?
Depends, some like to be limited partners, some like to be general partners, and it depends on how they want to be structured tax-wise as well too.
hold on, let me sort of go back through. One of the things that you see in institutional real estate transactions when you enter a joint venture is a developer has a dream but has no money, or wants to mitigate his risk and brings an institutional partner in. Those partners come in a variety of different ways. They'll bring the capital. How that capital is structured is going to depend on how you negotiate it. So sometimes that capital will come in as equity. Sometimes it will come in as debt. Sometimes it will come in as a mezzanine piece, which is really debt, but it's sort of in between debt and equity. It has equity and it also has potentially some debt. I'm sorry, it's debt, but may have some equity features. And they may also just provide a debt guarantee, and the debt comes from a third party, and part of what they're bringing is some equity and a guarantee to bring debt in. So it all depends on how you structure it, right? So, you know, these deals I talked about, what typically happens is in real estate limited partnerships, the partners come in as equity holders, limited equity holders, okay? And the leverage is obtained from a third party. Okay? Yes?
So as an equity investor yourself, I've also heard of people raising debt so that they can refinance out their partners and own the properties themselves.
So,
would you be opposed to like offering debt as opposed to equity yourself? Or like what are your thoughts on that?
well, so I mean, you asked two different things right there. So you're asking me my personal, let me answer the first one. Right. So the first one is one of the projects I used to assign is why leverage? What's the beauty of leverage in real estate? One of the beauties of leverage in real estate is that you can get to a point where you create enough value in an asset that you can re-lever it, refinance it, pay off equity, right? Send money home, right? And you're still in the deal. So you don't have to sell the asset to monetize it. You could just re-lever it, okay? So to your first point, am I opposed to that? Absolutely not. I mean, that's a great, if you know an asset and it cash flows and you've built value and you think it has additional value, but you can re-lever it to take some of that money out and reinvest to diversify into something else, then you do it. It's a slam dunk. Okay? So I think that's your first question, right?
It was more like if you have like let's say 70-30 debt on a property, and instead of bringing equity partners to cover the 30, it essentially is equity, but you're structuring it as debt, so you can refinance them out. So normally they would stay in the deal and they would stay in the deal.
Right. No, but what? So no, but that's. I mean, listen. Lenders take a look at a couple of different things that are critical. I think I'll talk a little bit about that next week. But lenders tend to look at loan to value and debt service coverage ratios, okay? So they want to know in the capital stack how much risk, how much skin do you have in the game as an equity holder. So there's going to be a limit on how much a bank loans to you because they want you to have skin in the game. So if you're in at 70-30 at the beginning, right? You can't just have the bank give you another 30 and pay these guys off. Because the bank's going to say, wait a minute, you got to have some skin in the game. That's day one. they're also going to come at you and say, how much is this thing cash flowing to pay off the 70%? So they're kind of looking at this thing from a two-pronged perspective, okay? How much skin do you have in the game? How much cushion do I have if there's deterioration of value and I got to step into that asset, okay? And then the third thing is how much cash flow is it generating to service the debt? Because you can stop to think, you know, from a hierarchy of credit, the first thing that the lender wants is cash flow to service the debt, number one, okay? Number two, they're going to want some sort of enhancement, a guarantee from somebody that they can easily get to. The last thing that they want is the asset. So they don't ever want to step in here and own an asset, okay? So you're going to be encumbered by this. Now, what happens is this. I buy an asset that's worth 100. I borrow 70 and I raise 30. I go through a value enhancement process. I'm a kick-ass operator. I paint it. I lie to people. I get the best broker. I raise rents. All of a sudden, it's now worth 150. How much equity do I have?
30.
No!
A lot.
But more.
But don't tell me a lot. I just gave you the formula. Assets equal liabilities minus equity. So what does equity equal?
Yeah, I have 80.
Okay? I mean 150 minus 70, right? Now I got equity of 80, right? Now what can I do? Now I can go to the bank and borrow
More money.
70% on 150, right? How much is that? Somebody's got a calculator. Is that 90?
A gonculator?
Whatever, one of these things. What's 150 times? What's 150 times 7? I'm useless without a calculator. Somebody's got a calculator.
70% of what?
Of 150. Is that 90?
105.
105, okay. So now I can borrow 105, right? So, and still be at 70-30, right? So now I just borrowed another $35. I just paid these guys their 30 back. They're happier than pig in slop, right? And you gave them a preferred return. You know, they've already got their money. They're already looking for another deal, and they're still in this asset. And they still got 30% equity in the deal. That's what happens. Does that make sense? No? Yeah? Maybe? You like this or not?
All I'm enjoying is, I'm just surprised that for an accountant, you're non-risk averse, I would say.
I am non-risk averse. I didn't answer the second part of the question.
Yeah, which is like, what if you structure that the 30 that you're giving back to them, that you're saying you're leaving them in the deal, you specifically raise it as debt so that you could refinance them out?
What do you mean? No. Come on. I mean, what do you think? People were born yesterday? Okay, so no. I mean, let's be in the deal. You're the general partner. You're the general partner. You put $1 in this, and you come and get $29 from me. You operate. I got $29 on the line. You got 1, right? Now, you raise this value, right? What, you think I'm going to say, pay me back my $29 and I went away happy? No. You pay me back my $29 and I'm still in the deal at the same equity proportion. Now, developers have promoted stakes, right? So there's a lot of different ways to incentivize the developer or the promoter or the general partner in such a way that he gets a portion of that, but you're not just going to send me home. I mean, this is America, man. I mean, you know, what a country. Yes.
So now I do got a question. Are you going to touch on waterfall structures?
I might. I mean, I think that's really in the finance class. We can talk about it a little bit, but I mean, I wasn't envisioning, but maybe we can. Maybe we can.
Okay.
Maybe we can. I mean, it'll come out. It'll definitely come out. But that's really, you know, either in investments or finance. But we'll touch on it. We'll touch on it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay? Are we? Your second question, do I get into debt funds? The answer is no, I don't get into debt funds. Now, I didn't answer. So ultimately, so this guy's saying it's $4 trillion. He was saying it's levered 70-30. I think it's bigger. The leverage is probably about right. The bulk of the 70%, which is where you can get your hands around, is private. Most of the debt is in commercial banks, life insurance companies. there is some public debt out there, okay? So there are mortgage REITs out there. There's a fair number of mortgage REITs that are doing direct loans right now. There's 5, 6, 7 large publicly traded. They tend to be tied to these large private equity groups, Blackstone, Apollo, KKR. All these guys have, you know, all sort of.
Carlisle Group.
I don't know if Carlisle, they may have a real estate, I don't know, publicly traded fund. Aris Capital has one as well. I don't know, they may. I mean, the tendency has been for all the asset managers to also create mortgage funds where they kind of disintermediated the lending from banks, so they kind of are lending directly. And then you've got securitized debt, and then again, we might get into some of that as well. So there are securitizers. Ballpark numbers, probably about $1 trillion worth of securitized commercial debt in this country, commercial real estate debt in this country. Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, would an opportunity zone fund be considered public if it was traded?
Well, it's probably not traded, and so there people have gone out there and raised, and that's where I was going to go. So what I did talk about is private equity real estate, okay, and there's a bunch of asset management businesses out there. There's a bunch of people who have gone out there and raised money just to invest in opportunity funds, but all that stuff is private in the private domain, okay, and so. None of those things, you know, go through the Securities Act of 33 and 34, and hence can't really be publicly traded, and they're really subject or limited to qualified institutional or high net worth individuals. Okay, that's just the way they're restricted.
And that's a new thing too, anyway.
Well, opportunity funds are, yeah, but I shouldn't get to all the answers and stuff, but somewhere here. I can't. I'll look at the break. I had a breakdown roughly of how much is private and how much is public equity. Okay, and I can't find it quickly now. I'm pretty sure I did it in the first class. Yeah, here we go. So this is a 2014. So this is what, 5 years old now? So when you take a look at the capital stock I came up with in 2014, we're already at 5 trillion, okay? And private debt was 2 trillion, public debt was only 400. That would have grown from 2014 to now. Public debt would be a bigger component, okay? And then public equity was like short of $1 trillion, and private equity was like $1.5 trillion. And the difference between public and private equity is that private equity tends to have, I might spend some time, I might be able to spend some time in the class in giving you some of the differences between public and private equity returns. The one punchline I'll leave you with is that public equity has a slightly higher return profile than private equity, but it has significantly more volatility. And the reason it's got all that volatility is because there's a liquidity premium that you need to somehow account for somehow, because when you're in private equity, you're in a deal for 10 years, you can't get out. I didn't answer the redemption question. Most funds have a lockout period where you can't request your money out. And in the context of real estate, you typically have no out. So when you've got some level of publicly traded investments in the institutional asset manager, so like you're running an equities fund, right? Or a publicly traded debt or a high yield debt fund, and the underlying assets are all publicly traded, you might have the opportunity to redeem your investments, i.e., under certain conditions, certain timelines, or certain performance benchmarks, you may be able to go and say, listen, you're not doing what you said you were going to do, I want my money back. And then they have to give it to you. So I'm on the board at my old undergraduate university, and I'm on the Investments and Finance Committee, and we just got into this macro global fund, and you know, unbeknownst to us, they invested 40% of the asset in Argentine bonds in June. Hello? And so, you know, we've lost, you know, like 40% of the investment, you know. But we can't redeem because we just got into this fund in the spring. So we can't redeem for like another 2 years.
That was 40?
Yeah.
I'll talk.
You talk to me about that. Okay, all right. Oh, we got time, man. What time we leave? 4:30?
Yeah, take a break.
No. We'll take a break at 2:30. Take a break at 2:30. I always like to bring, listen, I always like to bring a, I'm not going to require these books, but those of you who want to learn, this book was put together by a guy named Simon Beninga, and I've used this book as a reference material. It's called Principles of Finance with Excel. This is really like a junior level finance class, undergraduate. So it would be like, you know, capital budgeting or principles of finance type class. But it's a phenomenal book on how to do time value of money and, you know, solve things using Excel. This guy unfortunately died about 3 years ago. He's a professor he was at Wharton, and he used to run the MBA program at Yeshiva. But he died, unfortunately. But he was phenomenal. And if you can find, he's still online. If you can find, you know, like he used to record his classes and all that. He really was very, very good. So he had 2 books. He had another one which was a much more advanced book. It was a graduate level one. But this is still available on Amazon. I checked a few weeks ago and it was still available on Amazon. Principles of Finance with Excel, Simon Beninga. The other one, this one is in print. This is the 2nd edition. And this is what I was going to spec for the class. But Dr. Forgy spared you and said, nah, don't make him buy another book. And he's the one that turned me into this guy the first time. It's a guy named Roger Steiger, Real Estate Financial Modeling. This one is, I don't know if it's available on Amazon. Foundations of Real Estate Financial Modeling, Roger Steiger. It's Taylor and Francis Group. You can definitely buy it from them online. I'll leave it up here. Take a look at it. This is phenomenal. If you are in the finance realm, in real estate, or you really want to make that your career, get this book and go through it, okay? This one more than this one. This is a more general, basic book. This is very focused on real estate from an operator, okay? Very, very good. I didn't bring that many current events. I typically bring some. I don't bring a lot. I'm not going to tell you why, but I asked a question earlier. Where's the 10-year Treasury? I'm going to ask that every week. It's a 0.7. Who was in my class in the spring? You're in my class in the spring. Where was it when we stopped in June?
2.2.
Like 2.25, something like that. And it's down 50 basis points. It's down in percentages. What's that?
0.5%.
No, well,
Isn't 100 basis
50,
points 1%?
it's down 50 basis points, but what percentage overall is it down? Like 50 over 2 1/4, it's almost 25% down. That's a huge move in a few short weeks. So where's it going? I don't know. If I knew, I'd make a lot of money. I don't know. Okay, those of you who had me in the spring, who was the guy that I said was a bozo? You don't know, I called this guy a bozo, Adam Newman. No, Adam Newman's the guy from Mad Magazine. The WeWork guy, Adam.
Oh yeah, the arbitrage. That's the
Dude,
arbitrage.
Did I call that guy? Did I call him a clown? I said that guy's a clown. Okay, was I proved right? If you don't know what's going on with WeWork, they had an aborted IPO. Take a look at it. Take a look at it, because that even goes to manipulation, evaluation at a fund level. SoftBank is the biggest investor there. So SoftBank gets in at like $1 billion valuation, right? And then what they do is they keep putting additional equity, and every time they put additional equity in, they wound up bumping the value of this business up to $40 billion. What are they doing? They're goosing their returns right here. They're all the same saying their original investment here now, whatever proportion that was, is worth 40 billion. But they couldn't even float this at 12 billion in the market, okay? They had to pull the IPO, that's an embarrassment. They forced out this founder. They forced him out as CEO. They've gotten rid of his wife and all his buddies that he used to, you know, whatever, smoke pot and go on their private plane to Europe to have parties and laugh at everybody else while they took their money. Anyway, take a look at it. Stuff happens. People, you can't believe. I had a roommate in college. It was really sad, my first year, and somebody posted they did some posters that said that Deng Xiaoping was coming to do shots with Jimmy Carter on campus or something like that, you know? And his kid actually believed it. He called his mom. He was very naive. He called his mom and said, "Mom, can I stay this weekend? You know, Deng Xiaoping is coming and he's going to be drinking beers and doing shots with Jimmy Carter." And I said, "Wow, how can people be so stupid?" Well, no, I felt it, you know, it really turned out to be a sad story, but people believe a lot of stuff, and people, you know, steal money from other people, so it happens in the public domain as well, okay? Sort of interesting things, a lot of stuff's been happening. Retail is the one sort of asset class that we have no idea what's happening, you know? There's definitely losers, okay? There are definitely losers. Are there winners? I don't know. I mean, at this point, there's no winners. I know that I'm in a fund in which about 50% of the investments are targeted to retail. And I believe strongly in it. I mean, where they're targeted, we could be wrong. We could be totally wrong. But there's definitely things happening in the way we shop. And based on the way we shop, you know, that's ultimately going to impact retail. I say that, I bought this tall, I went to Aventura this morning on the way in to buy this thing. You know, it's 10 o'clock in the morning and the place is packed and every store front is open and they're paying incredible rents. So, we'll talk about it. But anyway, hedge fund betting against malls is winding down. So the hedge fund raised money to bet against retail equities and they have to shut down. So maybe they weren't. Interesting thing happening, no solutions here. It says multifamily REITs are backing technological innovation. So it says several multifamily REITs have invested $110 million in a fund which is targeting companies that are providing technology to support the experience of renters and to enhance the property management function. And it talks like, it says there's one called Smart Rent, which is helping renters manage their smart home devices from an app. So that's kind of sort of the fintech in real estate. Seems to be a place where people are putting money now from the venture capital and private equity perspective. What actually winds up winning there, I don't know. I really haven't given this a whole lot of thought.
People are going to rent for a longer period of time instead of going
Well,
property because money-wise.
well, so, but I'm not even just focused, yeah, so,
They're going to improve the quality of life of renters.
that's the point where I'm going, because home ownership rates in this country really, I mean, they've been between 60 and 68% for the last 60 years. So you've got a stable of the population in this country that rents. 35 to 40% of the population is always going to rent. But this is talking about tools that help you manage your experience, right? So there's a lot happening. I don't know what wins, what doesn't win. I don't know what makes money. I don't know what doesn't make money. But it's an emerging area or trend in real estate. You had a question
I think
or
it
comment?
has to do with a higher level of income. The renters having a higher level of income and not as many. They're treating their rentals more like it is their own home, and then also maybe the amount of homes being, short-term rentals.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think there's a couple of
Getting
different.
the technology.
Yeah, there's a couple of different concepts here, so, I would enhance your first observation. I would add to that and say that, you know, there's a very competitive set in this country.
Yeah.
So if you don't innovate, you lose.
True.
And so you've got to, regardless of whether people are, quote, more affluent or not, or whether you're charging more or not, you got to keep up with the Joneses. So if I drove on Nova Drive from Davie all the way to University when I came all the way around for a different reason. Not going to explain why, but and there's probably 15, 20 different multifamily assets there. There's single buildings, there's communities. And they attract a particular user. If I own one of those, I better have some sort of competitive advantage over the next guy. And what I don't want to do is compete on price. Because if I compete on price, the only way I'm going to win is by being the cheapest. So I got to give them something that's going to want them to rent from me as opposed to the property next door. So I got to keep it clean, painted, safe, looking nice, provide amenities, and maybe provide some of these apps that just, hey, all of a sudden, this one goes, hey, guess what? I can turn on my toaster or my oven while I'm driving, you know, when I leave work. You know, I can leave my TV dinner. I know people just buy from DoorDash now or whatever. I mean, I know that these are outdated concepts. But, no, but the point is, I think there's got to be something in it for them to invest, right? And my view is this is the example they gave in this newsletter that I read. But the reality is, I think they're all looking for a way to cut expenses. So how can they manage their property better, right? So, you know, as a collateral, if they can manage their air conditioning better, depending on how the electric bill is split, right, the landlord may wind up winning, right? Instead of having the air conditioning on all day at a low temperature, right? And again, it depends who's, you know, whether things are separately metered or not, okay?
When you visit the other part of the world, like Japan, Middle East, they are extremely advanced. We're behind.
In certain things, yes.
Like for example, I went to a bathroom in the Middle East, and I'm like, what? It was a bathroom. They have those many buttons for you to wash up down there. So just a simple example for the bathroom.
Yeah, well, there's certain things in Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you can ski indoors too, and you know. Yeah, well, if you got money, you can do a lot of things.
I mean, it kind of the perks.
Yeah, a fintech company that I heard about was LeaseLock, where they take over the down payment. Instead of you putting upfront down payment, you just pay a monthly payment, and they work with managers. Instead of you as a tenant going in and dropping down 3 months rent or 2 months rent, they'll just put it into a annuity structure where you just pay a monthly payment for the life of you leasing.
Were you saying a down payment when you buy or when you lease?
When you're leasing.
Oh, you're talking about like a security deposit or okay.
Down payment security, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, Ramon.
So these technologies we're talking about, even the ones from the Middle East and all that, would they be able to be in an affordable setting where we need to?
I mean, one of the, and I think one of the things I sort of jumped to. This was an article in another one of these newsletters I get. It says California has a new rent control law that's posing questions to multifamily investors. I think the single biggest problem that I think discussed in 10 years of teaching, and I have not seen a solution, is how do we make housing affordable in this country? And almost every major metro in this country has that problem.
Greed.
Well, okay, Bernie. No, listen, but here's the deal. No, but here's the deal.
Human factor. Let's put greed. Add human factor back into it. We live in a corporation world. Like, it's no secret.
But who owns corporations?
The United States Corporation of America.
People.
Capitalism.
No, that's just the foundation. The people actually own the companies.
So
That's
who
why
owns the shares and who owns the shares? People own the shares and they own
They
it.
call wave the corporation out of politics. We have a breather out of there, just there, breather. I'm not
Okay,
giving you
but-
a fixed thing.
Okay, but let's put it, I understand the frustration, okay, but let's put the contacts, and you know, thank you for the question, okay?
Because I went to, a week and a half ago to the housing summit in Dayton. Marco Rubio, none of them can really come up with too many answers because we have a low density environment that we live in and everything's going up, which is one of the issues that they're talking about, clearing some of the area, and actually we're just talking about the Brickell on 60,000 square foot units or what have you, going up. They've been having they didn't have I was at there for the whole day and there really wasn't any solution to what's going on.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get this thing powered up, because I'm going to show, look, the problem, and Isabel, here's the problem. Here's the problem. The problem isn't just a problem in this country, okay? It's a problem throughout the world.
Yes.
I spent some time, I'm going to power up and I'm going to show you something because the problem starts, there's definitely a genesis to the problem, okay? And it's not greed, there's a real genesis to the problem. And there are some solutions, but then we have to make compromises as a society, okay?
Yeah.
I spent some time in a class some years ago, and I popped up what different European cities were doing to try to provide more affordable housing for people. And I mean, there's all kinds of crazy ideas out there. So the simple ones which we provide in this country, Dade County owns 30,000 units. 30,000 units. Dade County, Miami-Dade County Housing Authority is the single largest property owner in Dade County. They own 30,000 units, trying to ameliorate this problem. But they don't even make a dent in it. Now, to begin with, because a good friend of mine, he is no longer was the deputy director of the housing authority, 4,000 of them aren't in use. Why? Because of bureaucracy. So, because from when they give it to somebody, they live in it, and it gets turned back. By the time it gets turned around, some of these units are out of service for 2 years. Because there's no profit motive involved in getting these units out into the field. Okay? So some people just they provide units. So from a tax perspective, the government provides housing. Another example that we use in this country, we provide subsidies. So in this country, what do you call them? Section 8 or what? I thought Section 8 is like what they give, when you go crazy in the Army, they give you a Section 8, right? Were you in the Army, James, or you weren't in the job? No.
It's more like Section 8.
I thought Section 8 was like when you went crazy. Anyway, so you can subsidize. You can subsidize. But in Europe, they do some crazy things like, in certain cities, if you don't rent if you don't rent a unit that you own for a year, they can expropriate it.
Yep.
In certain cities, they'll charge you a fee as high as 100,000 euros if you don't put something to work for a year. In certain places, they give people squatter rights. What are squatter rights? Something's empty, you occupy it, it's yours. Okay? But
What do you mean occupy it? You just moved in?
yeah. But then the question I ask is, if you worked hard and saved money and bought an apartment, for example, what's very common in Europe is you buy a lot of, at least in Spain where I go all the time, your savings go into residential real estate because the legacy you give your children when they get married is what? A place to live. So you work hard, you save money, you have a unit that you have there for your daughter when she's going to get married, so she has a place to live, and some guy walks in and takes it. That doesn't sound right to you, does it?
Make it to use.
Yeah, but his legacy is lost because he wanted it for his daughter.
I know, but in the
XYZ.
meantime, she gets to age, it's just gonna stay there.
Look, there's a whole, what you're not gonna drag me into is a capitalism versus socialism discussion right now.
No, we're not doing that.
You're not gonna drag me into that. You're not gonna drag me into that. But what I will say is, in a country where we have a constitutional right that defends property rights, the taking of someone else's property is probably not the right approach, okay?
Fair enough.
So, that's probably not the right approach. I happen to own 2 houses. I'll share that with you. I own 2 houses. I lived in one, I bought the house behind mine. I don't rent it.
What is it doing?
It's standing.
It's my house. It's an investment.
Oh my god.
I actually use it as my office now.
Okay, it's using.
Well, but it's probably not the highest and best use.
No, of course not.
But it's a personal financial decision that I make, right? I choose to speculate that way. I wouldn't be happy if someone came in and said, well, since you're not renting it, you're only using one of the bedrooms as your office, and the living room, you really don't get that many visitors, and the dining room is really a dining, it's not really your conference table. You know what? We're just going to give it to somebody. No, but the problem is we can't solve the problem by taking somebody else's things, okay? Now, this is what I was going to show you. So this is from a slide presentation that I had used some years ago. And I was going to show this later, so I'm going to go on ahead and jump to it now. Okay, so that has nothing to do with textbook, but I wanted to show it today because the textbook, and I'll sort of transition into the part of the textbook. The textbook talks about what real estate is and what it isn't, and there's a lot of different ways of looking at real estate. I always start my classes in a different way. If I were a developer, I would say real estate, real estate is like, these beautiful buildings, and it's art, and it's, a way of solving society's problems. And if I were an accountant, I used to, when I taught the accounting class, real estate's very simple. Land, building, and improvements thereon. It's that simple. Pretty straightforward, right? From a finance perspective, what's real estate?
Cash flow.
It's a financial asset. And what is a financial asset
Expected future
worth?
cash flow?
Financial asset's worth nothing more, nothing less than the net present value of its future cash flows. Okay, so I look at real estate as money. Okay? And it goes back to, if you have investors, I used the house example, but it could be somebody who buys into a fund that invests in multifamily assets, right? They're looking for a return. So the problem is you put a rent control law in place. Now you're telling this particular guy who put money into that fund, you can't make more than 2%. Well, inflation's 3%. Why should I be penalized? Because I chose to invest in a particular asset class. Now, here's the genesis of the problem. I put this together. So I got this from an old textbook that I used in a class. Remember, textbooks don't get thrown out, okay? Textbooks get used. So this is in this country, but I think it's the same issue in this world. 20% of the land in this country is rangeland. What's rangeland? I didn't know what it was. I'm going to show you what it is because I had no idea what it was. That could be a context. I'll show you. It's a lot of different things, okay? 21% of the land in this country is forest. 21% is federal. And most of that is off limits.
Like
now,
reserves, national parks.
And all of the above. Okay? All of the above. 20% is reserved for crops. So, well, no, you got 80% right there. Okay? And then you got 6% for the cows to eat. Okay? Okay? You got other rural stuff. You got water areas. We can't build on water. So all of a sudden, how much developable land, and this is from the census, okay? 2008. How much developable land do we have in this country? 6%. And what's the big, I'm going to get to your question, and what's the biggest problem? On top of that, we choose to live in very concentrated areas. So we don't want to live in rural areas anymore. So the biggest problem right now, Isabel, but listen, but until we address, so You tell me, what was the...
Okay,
Wait,
so
wait, because I got somebody ahead of you and I want to finish my thought, okay? Listen, so, bueno, bonito y barato, right? How do you say that in English? Bueno, bonito y barato.
good, cheap,
Good, cheap, and good looking,
and
right?
good looking, yeah.
Pick 2 out of the 3. You can't get all 3. So, we can't preserve the environment and get food, you know, and build. And to the point, because I got, so my friend who runs my old boss's home building business, the old rule of thumb when I was growing up was single family home values, the land, the underlying value of the land should not exceed 15% of the sales value. 15%. If you were in a more dense multifamily environment, you could afford to pay 20, maybe 25% of the underlying land was equivalent to sales value. You know what they're paying for land as part of the sales value in Dade and Broward County? Almost 50%.
Jesus.
So when you're already starting with, you can't cut construction costs out anymore. When you're already starting with the land is so dear because there's no land, that's where the problem starts. That's not the only problem, okay? That's not the only problem. But we all want to live in the cities, okay? And there's very little land. I'll get to you, but you had a question or a comment first.
No, it's just a quick question. I was just curious if this has changed at all.
Probably not materially. Probably not. I haven't looked, but probably not. It probably has evolved a little bit,
Yeah.
but probably not materially. Yes, Kenny?
So what percentage of this distribution is actually buildable and livable land?
Well, I mean, listen.
Because it's been taken
Surely,
out of
there's
that.
no doubt that you could probably take some pasture and cropland and easily convert it to residential.
Which is why I raised the question.
But you know, you have more efficient growing. You can import more food, right? If we actually had balanced trade, you know, we could get more. We could source food from other places, but that brings a whole bunch of other political sensitivities, like we protect our farmers and we subsidize them. Everybody does throughout the world, right? So, I mean, those are easily converted. Probably some of the federal lands are easily converted, right? So, but the problem becomes, do people want to live, you know, where there's cropland, right?
If we build if what necessary infrastructure, yes.
Well, but so what's happening? You know, Nigeria, Brazil have built like capitals away from the major cities. What happens in Brasilia on weekends? They built a capital in the middle of nowhere to facilitate. We don't have any Juliana's not here. Do we have any other? You're Brazilian. What happens in Brasilia on weekends?
Nothing.
Everybody goes home for the weekend, you know? It's like people fly in for government business and then they leave on the weekend, right? It's very difficult to just artificially create. Plus, it's very costly to artificially create cities, okay?
What about Vegas?
That's
Okay.
easy money up and everything.
Great, that's been an incredible use of taking rangeland, right? You know, but people gotta buy into, because as I'm gonna show you now, what rangeland has environmental concerns with it, a lot of it. So I just kind of go through a couple, because look, this was just a different way. What is rangeland? Look how much of the world is rangeland. So when you look in this, so you see it could be rainforest, right? It could be desert, right? Right? It could be all mountain ranges. It could be the frozen tundra of Alaska, right? So it could be the Everglades. So it's basically land, scrubs, water, but it's generally undevelopable or not easily developable or not really desirable for development, okay?
So it's unusable.
It's generally unusable, but it covers a tremendous amount. Now, it may be unusable, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a value, and I'm not an environmentalist, right? So for example, right, in this country, if you go to you can't build in the Rocky Mountains, but there's a lot of pasture there, there's a lot of animals that graze through there. The Everglades you can't build on, but it has a whole flow of water, right? And it supports a whole ecosystem. I went fishing yesterday. No, I haven't been fishing. I had not been fishing in probably 20 years. And now I know why. I left my house before 6. I got home at 3. We caught one little dolphin like this. And my friend took it home for his kids to eat. Okay? So you tell me if it was worth it. But what you realize is, so you're out there, what are you looking for? Birds, little flying fish, weeds. Why? Those are all signs to support an ecosystem, an infrastructure, right? So a lot of this rangeland, right, ultimately provide for an ecosystem, right? So a lot of that stuff might not be touchable. Let's keep going because I think it's important. I just want to. So I'll come back to this one in a second. I want to jump here because I think this is an interesting slide. So the first one is population in Florida. So we're up well over 20 million people. When I got here to this country, there were like 6 million people in the state. I mean, this is like we're the 3rd most populous state in the union right now. I don't know if people realize that, right? You got California, Texas, and Florida. We got more people here than in New York.
Represented.
Okay? So, well, I think it's terrible. I mean, the traffic, the contamination, the crime, the cost of housing. Imagine. Okay? So, in Florida, you really only have 3 major metros, and you got South Florida, which is really 3 metros. You got Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. You got 1 major metro. You got Orlando. You got Tampa. Everything else doesn't count. So if you're in real estate, I'm not saying it doesn't count, but if you're in real estate, where are you going to go?
Jacksonville.
Okay, so Jacksonville is kind of like the 4th metro, but even their Economic Development Council says, we're your last stop before you outsource to India. Okay? So, yeah, it is the 4th metro, but it's really not that important, okay? It does have a vibrant sort of, office and industrial and retail and multi, but I want to show you something else that's interesting because we got to know our state, okay? Oh God, what happened to the next slide?
I think you passed it.
Did I?
Yes, good one.
This one. So this is an interesting. Now this one is dated. This one is dated, unfortunately, and I've not updated it. But this is from about 7 or 8 years ago. And I got this from Florida Trend. It's a great magazine, $12 a year. You get a great daily newsletter. It gives you all. If you want to know about business in Florida, it's the best gossip sort of thing out there. Top 10 landowners in the state of Florida. Do we know how large Florida is? How many
3rd
acres?
largest.
Acreage-wise?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
41 million acres.
That was my next guess.
That was your next guess. Give him a star. Put your little hand out. We'll give you little stars, okay? 41 million acres. Okay. The top 10 property owners in the state have 3 million acres. Almost 10%. And who are they? Who are they? Plum Creek Timber, St. Joe's, Foley Timber, Rayonier. So all this land up here is what? Pines, and it's all used for timber for the most part, and pulp and paper products. Okay. What do you got here?
Sugar cane.
So you got here. You've got the 2. You got Florida Crystals and U.S. Sugar, and then these guys here. You got citrus, right? What Ben Hill Griffin, right? And then you got hogs and all that. Lights Brothers, and then you've got Desert Ranches. I think is the Mormons, and so you got 10% of the land is concentrated in 10 property owners. And then how big are the Everglades? Big. Yes, very good. That's a great. That was your next answer, right? Big. So if you add the Everglades, and the big cypress swamp next to it, you got another almost 2 million acres. Okay, and then you add the Ocala National Forest, and you got like 700,000 acres. And you add Lake Okeechobee, and you got like 500,000 acres. Before you know it, 20% of the land in Florida is already spoken for. And we just realized that people only live in 4 metros. So that's the problem that we have. Okay, that's a problem that we have. So anyway, I'm going to leave this slide up because I wanted to go over what the book had, so we can take a break and then go to other stuff. But so, look, you guys, I really hope you read the book. I stepped on my glasses. And, well, you know, they're like these cheap things from the pharmacy, you know, so I wonder if Novo paid for them. No, they probably well, won't they pay? So, listen, I don't have, Ramon, I don't have an answer to your question, man. I wish I did. I've done on multiple occasions. I did it again in the spring. If you take the median income in Dade County or Broward County, and you take the median home price, it don't work. It doesn't work. If you take the median income and look at the average rental rate, it doesn't work either. I don't have an answer for you. I did have lunch last week with a former student. And this is what she's on, and she's an engineer. She's an environmental engineer by training, but she's been all over this affordable housing thing. So she's on the whole prefab thing now. Okay? She had been working with some guys because she was going to drop like 20 prefab homes down in Naranja and see if she can make it work. And she had some guys in Opalaca that were doing like steel homes. She's off those. She's now got some guys in Spain that do more like boxes, like containers. And they're doing some housing in like Holland and stuff. Like they're dropping like refugee camps in places, you know, and like temporary jails and things like that, and you know, Benghazi or you know, wherever. And I had done. I don't think that's the answer because you still need the land, which is a problem, and you got all the plumbing and all the services. Okay. I think you got to get. I think you just got to build smaller. I did a deal in Mexico City some years ago when I was doing due diligence. We were looking at, a client of ours was looking at a company that was doing what was called affordable housing. Now, affordable housing in Mexico is not affordable housing here. Affordable housing in Peru and in Brazil is not the same thing as affordable housing here. Affordable housing in a lot of these countries is people that are coming from informal housing, shanties, right? Squatters, and are owning the fee interest in a house for the first time. And these guys in Mexico City, so it turned out to be a shell game. Like these particular guys weren't doing it well. They weren't doing it well because they were lying to the investors. But their concept was they're putting up these towers in Mexico City, and the average unit size was only like 300 square feet. Because it had a little micro kitchen, and it had a little micro dining room.
Micro unit.
Totally micro unit. And so all of a sudden, you're not paying for 800 square feet, you're paying for 400. Are you tighter? Yeah. Yeah. What do people live in Japan? You're saying people are really advanced, but you know, you go to a hotel, and I've never been to Japan, you go to a hotel in Japan where they give you like one of those little tubes, and you just go into a tube. So, you know, but I think we need to keep doing more research into materials, because labor costs, if you reduce labor costs, what are you doing?
It was talking about not a new, but another material they're using that goes together like Legos, not shipping container, but it's a different material. And it's cheaper, faster. It's cheaper to ship a container also. And they're doing it now in Atlanta. They just started doing, he's doing a whole complex by his name. I'll bring it next week.
I think that's prefab. Or they
Yeah,
build
so
it in
it's
the
some sort
warehouse.
of, yeah, or you know, or you can, or, yeah. So look, I think that's the topic. I think whoever has a solution for that could win elections, frankly. But I don't hear anybody talking, you know, an answer that's really holistic, that's addressing the real issues. And I think the real issue is we've got to find a way to expand the footprint, and we've got to push people away from the urban cores. And we're not doing, we don't incentivize any of that in any way.
Yeah, but that's a double-edged sword though, because if you take them out of the urban core, then where are they going to work?
That's where all
And
the
you've
cars are
got to
parked.
create,
Infrastructure.
but you can have, listen, you can go to Moorhaven, there's a main street in Moorhaven, there's people who live there, and there's banks, and there's manufacturing businesses. You just, everybody just can't go to the cities. I mean, what happens in Cairo? What happens in Mexico City, where you've got 30 million people living in a city? You also can't provide jobs for all those people there, and you collapse the infrastructure there too. I mean, look at Dade County, man. I mean, I don't know Broward that much, but what used to take me, I'll give you, there was a time where we would teach the program Friday and Saturday. So I would drive up here Friday night. Friday, rush hour is tough. I could leave my house in Key Biscayne at 4 o'clock, and as long as I got to downtown Miami by 4:15, I could be up here in 45 minutes. Today, if I leave Key Biscayne at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, okay, it'll take me 30 minutes to get through a mile in downtown Miami. So you got these bottlenecks, and you can't widen the roads enough to get people through there. And we want intelligent and built public transit infrastructure as we develop the city. And Florida's like the one state where we could have done it, and we haven't done it anywhere. So yeah, there's no simple answer and there's no cheap answer, okay? But it is a problem. It is a problem. Anyway, so yeah, let me come back to. So look, the book, chapter 1 is real simple. It talks about risks and opportunities in real estate, okay? Look, I'm going to tell you my words. What are the risks? This guy talks about risks in 4 or 5 areas, okay? And it ultimately talks to operating expenses. You can say, well, do operating expenses go up? Well, so depending on the lease structure that you have, and maybe you've gone through the difference between gross and net leases. If you haven't, we can spend some time on that. But if we want to assume that we're in a net lease environment, we could assume, or we could think that operating expenses are not the property owner's problem, they just get passed down. But the reality is, it doesn't work that way, because ultimately you need to have competitive properties, okay? And you can say, well, should real estate operating expenses be relatively controllable? The answer is yes, but no. So I'll give you a real life example. It's 2007. I forget what hurricane blew through around 2006. It might have been Katrina. They didn't do that much damage here, but then did a lot more. What happened? What happened to insurance premiums in the state of Florida in 2007? Well, first of all, a lot of people couldn't get insurance. You couldn't underwrite it, and if you could, all of a sudden, I mean, we had properties where we were incurring. We went from $2 a square foot in operating expenses in an industrial asset to almost $4 because of insurance. Now imagine you're in a gross rent environment. You're the landlord. You eat that. That's a risk. Imagine you're in a net environment. You pass it to the tenant. What's the tenant going to do? He's going to look for a lower cost solution. Okay? So things like that can happen. Utilities. Imagine you're in California now, and your problem, you've got mission critical tenants, right? And now you've got to start providing backup generators to provide electricity for that because you can't rely on the public utility. So operating expenses can get away from you. Property taxes. All of a sudden, you get some crazy guy. Listen, you're in California, you own a property, and all of a sudden somebody passes a rent control law. What happened to your revenues? Oh my God! All of a sudden, you're constrained in your revenues. Okay. The book talks about vacancy, and really what they're talking about, it's really your releasing risk. Okay. Ultimately, when you buy an asset, the one single biggest pop or up or down that you could have is when a lease expires. And every asset class has a different sort of nuance, right? There are certain tendencies. Industrial tends to have very high occupancy in this country. There's a high barrier to entry. Multifamily doesn't have as high a barrier to entry, but also has a relatively high occupancy factor. Multifamily also has, you reprice every year. Every year, you can remark your rent to market. in other asset classes, you tend to have longer leases. CBD offices tend to lease for 15, 20, 25 years. Some retail assets tend to lease for very long periods of time and have multiple extensions, okay? Suburban office, you might do 5 years. So anyway, that moment of releasing is your single biggest opportunity to increase your revenues or potentially to decrease them. Because two things can happen. Either new product comes online and you have to lower your rents to keep your vacancy, or you just lose vacancy outright. You go dark, space goes dark, right? But it's also your opportunity to bump up rents if all of a sudden there isn't a competitive set. So the book also talks about doing market analysis. I know there's a market analysis class. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But ultimately, it's understanding the competitive set, the supply and demand paradigm around the assets that you have, so that when those releasing moments come in, you've got an opportunity to see, is that going to be a positive or is that going to be a negative for me? Okay? So vacancy, when space is empty, you got no income coming in. Okay? So the book talks about natural disasters. Hopefully you can insure the bulk of that away, hopefully. But some of the stuff may not be insurable. I mean, what happens with climate change? What happens if, you know, you're in Key West and all of a sudden you're in a neighborhood that's been underwater now for the last 3 or 4 weeks? You know? Yes, sir.
I know it's not, I guess, natural disasters like per se, but aren't they not leasing or not necessarily looking at coastal regions as development zones because they like believe that the water, you know, levels going to rise?
Well, I mean, some people argue that there's already been impacts in valuation because of that, and you're starting to hear more and more from, you know, the whole sort of planning and approval process as to what can or should be built in coastal areas. So, I mean, it's definitely an evolving trend, and it definitely has an impact. Yeah.
So I don't know, like, I know that's not really considered a disaster, but it's like
well,
kind of
no, but
similar
it is.
effect,
I mean,
like,
rising
sea levels.
waters is a problem. Okay.
Right.
And you know, we have it here with, you know, the sea levels, right? But it's also a problem with rain and with snow melting and rising water in rivers. So there are so they talk, you know, the author talks about that. And the author talks about liquidity, right? You're ready to sell, there's no willing buyer, or not at the price you want to sell. Okay, so those would be the risks. The opportunities are sort of the flip side of that, right? So you've got a leasing, you know, or a mark-to-market opportunity, right? Can you actually make that to your favor? Can I take dark space and lease it? Can I rent it at a higher rate? Can I lower operating expenses, right? And again, there, depending on the lease structure, it may not inure to the benefit of the landlord, but in the long run, if you benefit your tenant, you'll benefit yourself. You'll have a more competitive property. Yes, Ramon?
I was thinking leaseback programs with the government.
Okay, talk to me about that. I mean, that's a little bit, you know, far away from.
Well, I just know you get leaseback property. Let's say you get a house with a 30-year contract with the government. You can actually get more rent out of that with the government than you could from a direct.
Well, okay, so, I mean, listen, that to some extent is what the book is talking about, rental growth, okay? And what they're saying is, well, you're telling me that you think or you believe that there's a program that's going to give me a higher value, ultimately higher terminal value, because I'm going to be able to push rents up. So this guy describes this as an academic. You've just given me an example of a real-life situation where you think you've got an advantage. I can build, and I can get higher rents, and a higher terminal value if I lease it to the government. Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's kind of chapter 1, guys. I mean, there's nothing else. There's a table here which I'm going to go over next week. I'm not going to go over that this week. Okay. It talks about present values. I'm not going to spend time with market research. It talks about personal decisions and the risk-reward paradigm, and I mean, we know it, right? So, like anything else in life, right? I think we should say reward. I'm going to turn around and do it over there so everybody can see it. Oh, no. We really should look at reward before we look at risk, okay? That way, you know, listen, you guys stay awake, right? So, everything in life is a normal distribution. That's what people in statistics would have you believe, right? So when we talk about reward, we're talking in the context of any financial asset, we're talking about return, expected return. And what's expected return? What's expected return? Well, money, right? But I want to tell you that that is a measure of central tendency, okay? You're going to say, whoa, what's this guy talking about? Okay. Oh. Hi.
There you go.
Really? There we go. Wow. Personalized service. I've never had that before. Okay. So, I'm going to London next week. I mean, I'm really not, but I'm going to pretend I'm going to London. I'm going to London next week. What am I going to do today? I bought a ticket already. What am I going to do? I want to pack. What am I going to do before I pack?
Check the weather.
I want to check the weather. What's the historical weather in London at the end of October?
Rain.
Do I take, well, it's the same in London all the time, okay? But, you know, what am I going to take? I'm going to take rain gear, right? I'm going to take a couple of sweaters, right? So, history is not a direct determinant of the future, but it's the next best thing we've got, right? So, we can easily, in the context of return expectations, look at historical averages as expected measures of return, right? So if,
like
if the stock market, well, yeah, we can forecast, right? But an expectation, right? Now, there are a lot of different ways to expect, right? So you can actually very granularly, for example, do your expected net operating income next year, okay? But on a more global basis, I could say historically, privately owned real estate returns 7% every year. What should I expect next year?
7%.
That's what I should expect. Now, maybe I want to say, hey, it's a fast growth period. Maybe I expect 8%. Or it's going to be lower. Maybe we should expect 6%. But there's some sort of expectation based on historical trends. Okay? So that's the reward we're looking for, right? It's a return we're looking for. In the context of finance, what is risk?
Standard deviation.
Well, so you're giving me the mathematical way we calculate, but let's articulate it.
The beta?
Well, beta is a measure of volatility as well, but I'm trying to look a little bit more macro and just say, if reward is my expected return, risk is not hitting my expected return. It's anything that isn't my expected return. Now, all right, in the context of money, most of the time you don't look it up. I expect 7 and I got 10. Is there really risk there? No. I think I'll take that all day long, right? Typically you look at lower tail, right? But, so where you're concerned is you're banking on 7% and you get 3. Or you get a -5, okay? And so when we talk about, and that's when we can measure in the context of standard deviation, okay? How far away, right? What sort of range, right? How far away am I from my expected, you know, and so that's risk, right? Risk is not hitting my expected return. And obviously in a financial world, we're always much more concerned with what happens if we miss it on the downside, okay? So real estate is no different, right? We're gonna expect certain returns, and there's gonna be risk associated with that. And commensurate with higher risk expectations, I think life will tell us that there is more volatility, okay, more risk from missing that than with, you know, more compacted return expectations. So the book talks about, they've got a nice little chart here. Unfortunately, I don't have as much time as, sorry? Does that, oh. So, I can't see without them, so I
don't know if
get rid of that. So I have no idea how I'm going to find the next slide, but, oh here, it's this thing, we're here, we're here, so. So the book, so this is, I might send this to you guys. Some of the stuff are my slides, some of it is what the publisher has, Some of it is what the publisher has that I've changed. So I might send it to you, but I'm not going to send it to you before the class. So you can actually write stuff down and listen. Otherwise, you just, oh, I already got it. I don't really need to take a look at that. So this is what the author has. Okay, the author talks about less risk in real estate or more risk. All right, I'm going to expand that a little bit, but really the context in real estate, when we talk about real estate investments, and we talk about real estate investments in a core, in a private equity realm, we talk about core versus non-core investments. Okay, if you want to equate that to equity trading, we can talk about value, right, versus growth.
Oh.
Okay, and so we're talking about investing in different assets where we're going to have a different return expectation, okay? And because we're going to have a different return expectation, we should expect more or less risk, okay? So, in a pure, let me jump to mine. I've got, I think, a little bit more expanded slide. So, I talk about core, value add, and opportunity. People talk in real estate in two different realms. They talk about core, core plus, value, and opportunity, or people talk about core, value, value plus, opportunity. But you got three different buckets. Core, very conservative, a lot of income generation, low leverage, Class A assets, 24-hour cities, CBD office, industrial and port cities, Class A multifamily, core stuff. It's always going to be occupied. You're not going to have vacancy. You're going to have credit tenants. Okay? You're always got cash flow. The other extreme of that is opportunity. Brownfield redevelopments, contaminated land, land with no entitlement that I've got to re-entitle, no cash flow, development risk. Okay? The other extreme, no cash flow. A lot of cash flow. A lot of cash flow. Very little value creation. No cash flow. Hopefully a lot of value creation. Because the one thing that we got to talk about is what we call, come on, turn that thing around, is what we call holding period return. HPR. What's holding period return? When you make money, how do you make money? In real estate, when you make money,
It's on sale.
you can, no, it's not all on the sale. That's what I'm getting to. That is one way to make money in real estate, right? So, oh, very good. So holding period return, you could use this formula for any period. This is an undiscounted formula. Holding period return. Anybody? Some of you guys haven't taken my class. You must know this, right?
Andrew?
You just got, this guy's like, all right. Don't ask me. Anybody remember this? Come on, okay. Price at the end, right? Less price at the beginning, right?
Divided by price of the beginning.
Plus any distributions or dividends that you've gotten over the year, divided by price at the beginning. Pretty simple. We know how to do this intuitively. We got to learn how to write formulas from things that we already know. Okay? But what this is talking to is, I can make money. Part of my holding period return could be capital appreciation, and part of it could be current income. Okay? And the value proposition in investing in real estate talks to, where do you want to be here? Do you want to be all appreciation? That's opportunity. Do I want to be all in current income? That's core. Do I want to be somewhere in between? Core, core plus, value, value plus, whatever it is that you want to talk about. Okay? And different assets are going to naturally fall into one or the other. If I buy a piece of green land, right? Unentitled land, there's no cash flow. I'm going to have to rely on capital appreciation to make my return. That inherently is going to have more risk with it. I've got entitlement risk, I've got development risk, I've got risk to rent, right? Look at all the risks that I got. Now, I buy an office building in downtown Fort Lauderdale. It's 97% leased, and there's no lease expirations for the next 7 years. All the tenants are credit tenants. How much risk do I have to my income? Very little. How much opportunity do I have to create value along the ways that we talked about? When am I going to be able to increase vacancy? I can't. When am I going to be able to increase rents? Not at least for another 7 years. So where am I going to get return here? Okay? In my current income. All right? So certain assets are going to naturally suit certain buckets of money, and others. Now, you're a young whippersnapper, right? So I'm in Spain the other day. I go to Spain, and I'm sitting there, one of my T-bills comes up, and so I grab my computer, and I start, I'm gonna buy another T-bill. So my friend's son says to me, so this kid's a graduate student, he's a very bright kid, but he's an artist, you know? So he's like, dude, Theo, oh yeah, dude, like, he goes, I want to make a lot of money. Can you show me? I go, well, I'm buying T-bills. These things, they're yielding like 1.74%, you know? He goes, no. I goes, I want to double my money. He goes, I got 1,000 euros. He goes, I want to double it by 5 o'clock. Great. Go to the casino, red or black. It's very simple. You know, you want to speculate? You want to speculate? You come over here, okay? Speculation, okay? You want current income? You're the old guy that has to live off of his rents? You're over here, okay? And so naturally, different investors are going to gravitate to different buckets, okay? So you're going to have people that are much more speculative, younger, more years, you know, to generate money, or they can allocate a proportion of their portfolio to riskier assets, right? Some other people are going to take a look at more of the income. And that really is what styles of investing talk to, and that's really what the author is getting to in that figure 1.11, okay? When he's talking about you know, the risk-reward paradigm in real estate. And so, I mean, we could spend a lot. I'll send you the slides so you can take a look at it. Okay, so you know, and I talk there to, you know, the sort of assets that sort of fit the attributes or the characteristics of. And then the last thing, so the author goes through a tremendous amount of time. I'll use the slides just because it's quicker than for me going through the book. When he talks about different types of real estate, right? He talks about the sort of, you know, 4 basic asset, 5 basic. We talk about multifamily, retail, office, industrial, and hospitality, hotels. Okay, those are the 5. And then developable land, which is also suitable for residential. Okay. Do we have a question, Isabel, or we just had a comment? Question? No. Okay, just wondering. Okay, developable land. They talk about greenfield, infill, coming back into the core, into the center, right? Brownfield, contaminated sites. Okay. So they talk about the different types. I'm not a retail guy. I'm more of an office and industrial guy. That's more my background. Strip centers tend to be sort of standalone, non-anchored, smaller, community-driven. So people come in, your dry cleaner, your phone store, Subway, things like that. Community retail centers tend to have an anchor. So these things are probably, on average, no more than 10, 15,000 square feet. Community retail centers tend to have an anchor. They tend to be like a grocery store, a Publix, a Winn-Dixie. These things could be anywhere from 50 to 150,000 square feet. Okay, these trends all evolve, but that's just sort of the basic attributes of these things. Power centers tend to have multiple anchors. So Miami Beach, when you first come over MacArthur Causeway, there's a thing with a Publix, a Best Buy, and a Staples. There's one Dadeland station. It's got a Best Buy, a Dick's, Bed Bath & Beyond, and a PetSmart. Okay? So power centers typically have multiple anchors. They may have other inline guys. And then, is that the thing they're building here on 95? Yeah, I'm not sure what's ultimately going there. I noticed it coming up today. But that's probably more of a power center type concept where you've got 3 or 4 anchors, and then you've got some other sort of inline people in between them, okay?
They got a farmhouse, they gotta be good.
Okay. And then regional malls, and you really got, regional malls are also, I mean, it could be as a million square feet, but they tend to be hundreds of thousands of square feet, okay? Power centers might be 150 to 200, 300,000 max, okay? This guy talked about, I think in industrial you got really you've got distribution space, you've got manufacturing space, and you've got flex space, okay? So distribution space so manufacturing, they tend to be custom built buildings. You're a company, you're manufacturing something, the building needs to be suited or suitable for your specific use. Distribution tends to have certain attributes. What might be some of those attributes?
Docks.
So you need to have a lot of doors, right? The building has to be dock high to permit trucks to come in and out. You need to have wide truck courts do they have a lot of office?
No.
Probably not. Do they have high clearance?
Yes.
Probably. Do they have tight column spacing?
No.
No, because then you can't circulate around it, right? And you lose space. So those are the attributes so those boxes, a good traditional industrial institutional type building is anywhere from 100 to 200, 250,000 square feet. You could easily demise, that space, for different users. But you tend to have a lot of doors, okay? You might have a door every 2,000 to 3,000 square feet, okay? So you want, yes, sir?
They forgot to add also the research and development sector.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different stuff. I can tell you that self-storage, which he talks about in the book, is really an industrial use, okay? But, yeah, there's a lot of different, and when you talk about office, they didn't go into medical office, really.
Yeah.
That's a whole other subclass where research might fit into as well, okay? But flex buildings, what are flex buildings?
Warehouses that have a larger portion of office where traditional.
So typically an industrial is, one of the attributes is small office, probably no more than 10, 15% maximum office use. Flex might be, so they tend to be smaller businesses, they might be both office, showroom, and distribution. So flex space is typically characterized with as much as 50% office build out, okay? Tough asset class because it's, again, very user specific and small user specific. Somebody had a question back there.
Oh no, it wasn't just a question, but I was gonna say a lot of them, like, it's big warehouses and then they'll have like drop ceilings that they can, I guess, like expand as needed. So like if the company starts off, they don't have a lot of like office people, typically they'll have smaller amounts, but then the flex space allows them to grow out if they need to like.
Yeah, but the problem is you're paying for the space, right? And so, in bulk industrial space, I don't know, in South Florida, let's put a number on it, $10 a square foot, industrial gross. A little more, a little less, depending where you are. Flex space, you might be at 16, 17, $20 a square foot. Because the office build out is there. Okay, and so, you gotta know who you are, right? Probably from that growth perspective, you probably start in a smaller, front-loaded, type, 5,000 square foot, single bay type, use, and then you expand from there, okay? But I'm not sure that you would take industrial space and then build office into it. Just, my personal, yes ma'am?
Those areas that have like someone fixes cars in one spot and then like the next
Yeah.
or something, it's like kind of like
Yeah.
off, what is the local category?
So that's industrial, and that would be, going back to, that would probably be traditionally distribution space, which people have suited for the smaller users. And that, they tend to be in older parts of town. So, in South Florida, like old parts of Hialeah, which might have been bulk distribution space 60, 70 years ago when it was a much smaller city, right? And much smaller distribution requirements. Now that's where your mechanic is, in your body shop, and the dry cleaner or whatever. Not the dry cleaner, but the actual place that launders and stuff. Okay? And office, we already talked about that. CBD, suburban. CBD, 600,000 square feet up. Suburban office buildings, 4 or 5 stories. Office plates, what are floor plates in offices? 25,000 square feet. Okay, that's kind of an optimal floor plate. Suburban, that means you're gonna have a 4 to a 6-story building. You might be surface park, you might be structured. CBD, you might not even have parking. And if you are, you're up on a pedestal, right? So, and you might provide 1 parking space per 1,000. Suburban, as much as 5, okay? So, different. As time permits, maybe in other classes, we can talk a little bit more about these stuff. The book talks about high-rise, mid-rise, and garden style. I really think there's 2. High-rise is in like the 4 or 5 major cities. In most places, we talk about mid-rise and garden style. Garden style is what you see in South Florida. Just drive around here. 2 stories, 3 stories, right? They may or may not have elevators, okay? The book gives you all sorts of metrics on, you know, average unit sizes. 1 bedroom maybe up to like, you know, 500-600 square feet. 2 bedrooms maybe up to about 1,000. You know, more than that, maybe beyond 1,200 square feet, okay? And we can talk about, maybe if time permits in the class, we can talk about what the rent metrics are for all these different asset classes in hotel. I really would talk about, you know, full service and extended stay or limited service. Either one of the 2 is what we won't spend a lot of time. I think we'll do a hospitality model because I think it's important to understand how hotels work. But that's a whole other animal into itself because there's an operating component to that. So with that, oh, and FAR, I think that's an important concept. So, well, a couple of different ones. Let's talk about these 2, or these because I think they're important. FAR, floor area ratio, is a relationship between what you can build and the surface area. So you guys should have all read this stuff. This should all be just review, okay? So if you have a 10,000 square foot parcel of land, and by right, you can build FAR of 4 to 1, you can build 40,000 square feet on it. So you can occupy the entire space, which you typically can't because you've got setbacks and other issues. But just theoretically, you could build 4 stories of 10,000 each, right? Or you can build 40 stories of, 10 stories of 4, okay? So you can, you know, do it, again, all based on zoning code, but FAR is a relationship of your surface to your buildable rights, okay? Gross versus net lease square footage. Gross is basically a perimeter, right? Net is what you can actually lease. You want your net to be as close to your gross as possible if you're the owner to maximize your revenues, right? So you want to make sure you don't lose square footage along the way that you can't build. So sometimes you can take some of the common areas and charge a proportional component of the operating costs associated to that to your tenants, okay? And then it talked about economic and physical occupancy. So economic is what I lease. I lease 100% of this building to Andrew, but he doesn't occupy all of it because he wants to grow and he still has one section of a floor that's dark, okay? So people talk about shadow occupancy in that context, all right? And you need to know that because you're earning money for it, but it's not really occupied. So it's not really space, it's not demand in the market, okay? But there's also a difference there too as well. Sometimes it works the other way. You've got physical occupancy and it's not economic. You might have a management office in a building that doesn't pay rent. So you might occupy part of the building to have your people there and they're occupying, but there's no economic benefit from it, okay?
How about a sublease?
So a sublease is not, so a sublease is when a lessee, right? So lessor owns the building and grants a right. What's a lease? What's a lease? A lease is a right to occupy or to use. Because a lease is a right to use an asset, right? If it's real estate, we would say it's a right to use a real estate asset, right? For a specific period of time. Okay? So a lessee is the person who contracts and obtains a right to use space. A sublease is when the lessee becomes the lessor and essentially passes leasing rights to a third party. I would tell you in most institutional transactions in this country, you can't sublease space because the property owner doesn't want the tenant to essentially be an arbitrager, you know, and lease it like a WeWork, okay? And there's, I didn't get into it, I had all kinds of stuff on what the exposure is to REITs and other landlords in this country with WeWork, but that, we'll leave that for another class, okay? So why don't we do this? I'm gonna go out, take a break, back at 3:20, and we'll do a little quiz, and then we'll get to do some Excel stuff, okay?
All right.
Sorry. You ask questions, I guarantee it takes a while. Okay, then. How long have you been in the program? Oh, did you really? What year? Oh, no, oh, you. Oh, okay, okay, cool. Yeah, I live here. I mean, that's the problem, right? So, no, but I fly up every quarter for the board meetings, and I'm usually on the phone every week. I've only been doing this is my second year. But, I love the school, and, you did a great job for me anyway. How long have you been down here?
6 months.
Oh, so you're relatively new in South Florida. And when did you start in the program? When you got it? Oh, so you just started now too?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I thought you were one of the older guys, okay, all right.
He's a newbie.
I think he's the oldest one, right? You're
No, Miriam,
There's a few
no,
people.
oldest in age maybe.
No, I mean in the program, because I think this is his last semester, right?
Yeah,
But I think-
there's a few people in here.
Yeah, but I think Miriam should be about done by now. She's been in it for a while, they're going slowly. Juliana, who's not here today,
Maybe the summer.
you're done in the summer. I think they're done like now.
Yeah, they're done now.
Yeah, this is my last two classes.
Oh, these are, okay, the Dr. Forgey's in this one? Okay,
You got
good.
investments in REE too. Left.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, look, we used to do the program over a year and a half, and I think it's a lot to cram it all in a year. It really, you gotta make the time for it. If you don't make the time for it, you're gonna find that there's stuff you forget. I mean, we went over that. There's about 7 people in this class, in my class in the spring. I know we went over that at least once in the class, and you don't remember it. And that's the problem, it's a lot of material in a short period of time. That's why, if you're not in a rush, you don't have to.
Honestly, I knew about that because my finance degree.
Well, it's a finance company, but this is real estate as a financial asset. Real estate was not a class, was not an asset class in, whole S&P stock classification until last year. It was under financial services.
interesting.
Hey, there's lifesavers up here, and I shouldn't have had one, because these things are addictive.
Take a look at those 2 books you recommended.
Yeah, absolutely. This one,
Yeah.
this is the one that we were gonna use.
Really?
Yeah, but it's heavy duty.
Yeah.
But theirs is more basic. This is more sort of general finance. I was totally focused on real estate.
I originally went, I think this Monday, to look for this one in the bookstore here, but they didn't have it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I didn't have it, so I ordered it on Amazon, but they're bringing it next week. So in my desperation attempt, I saw that they had an Audible for
And that's
chapter
why you
1.
got it. You know what disappoints me with that is, I didn't expect it. I mean, I had told Dr. Forgy about this over the years, and he finally sort of got turned on. He knew the book, and he's like, you know what, it's time for a change.
Yeah.
And they called me and said, there's no money difference. He said, we can sell it directly to the students if you want, but just let us know.
Yeah.
And so I called Dr. Forgy, and he goes, no, the university makes us go through the bookstore. So,
No, they didn't have it at the bookstore.
but that's disappointing to hear.
Yeah. Did you guys get it at the bookstore?
No.
Yeah.
got it directly from them.
I got it.
So you, okay, yeah, so they'll sell it directly, yeah, they'll sell it directly.
It was a cheaper section.
And it's even cheaper than the book. That's a ripoff.
Yeah.
Amazon.
Bookstore is cheaper.
I don't know, does he do Amazon?
He does, but it's expensive.
But
It's very expensive and it's
Let's take the elevator.
a bunch of options, but if you go on their actual website,
They'll sell it, yeah, they'll sell it. It's like a mom and pop business in a way. Really, it's like a family, not mom and pop, but it's a family business.
Yeah.
I saw they had this thing where they would even like offer you, I guess, a course from their own website and you could get a certificate or something like that.
So this is this Bruce Kirsch, who's become with this edition, he's become like a co-author. Because this Linneman guy's getting old. And so this Kirsch guy's taking over the program, and he had this whole online Excel certification.
Right.
Dr. Forgy sent me, one of our former students sent him an Excel modeling class that a student at the University of Florida, a graduate student, just put together. And I thought it was very nice for, a student to put together. But it's no different than what we're going to do now. But I thought it was somebody that obviously had a fair bit of real estate experience. And so he actually put something together that was pretty nice. Somebody please eat these things, please, before. Take these away from me, please. Here. No, just pass them on. Just pass them on, oh, sorry.
Hey, I'll take one, Brian.
Here.
What is that?
What color you want?
He got orange.
Oh,
Can you give me
man.
one?
No one likes orange.
I like orange.
I'll take it. Here you go. You probably like orange skills too, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody else want one? What
Give me
color?
one. Give me that red one. Dark red one.
Did you
The one.
find those
Yeah.
here or did you bring them?
This one? Probably that vendor machine.
First floor?
Green?
Second floor. If you go one stairs
No, I
down.
went back at the, no, I didn't see those ones.
Put down.
Oh yeah? I actually got this one, but then I saw this one and I was like, I want this one.
And I have that one for
What time do we finish, at 5? There's not enough time in this class to do everything we gotta do.
I thought we finished the.
I get to remember, I just know now.
So we finish at 5, right?
No.
5. 5.
For extra credit, I'll do 5.
No, you're gonna do it, it's for free.
Participation.
Extra participation.
I gotta stay here till 7 anyway, so.
So you wanna do it till 7? So we
Yeah, let's do it till 7. No. I gotta stay till 7. I got a soccer game I gotta go watch at 7, so. Here. One of my former players is playing at Eckerd up in St. Pete, and they're playing Nova tonight, so.
You coach?
I coached high school soccer for the last 8 years, but I'm done.
You're done?
I'm done.
In the Grove, right? No.
And yeah, LaSalle, yeah, in the Grove. I'm done. I wasn't sure if I was gonna go back or not, but
Are they getting a new stadium? A new stadium design?
where?
At the high school there.
They're trying to raise they're trying to raise $15 million, and half of that is going for a stadium, yeah.
Because I know the firm that's supposed to
Really?
be working on it, yeah.
They've cut loose the architects.
Oh, yeah, they're designing it now.
I'm an alumnus. I ain't giving any money to that. I mean, I think it's way over the top.
Yeah.
Way over the top way over the top. You could, for $1.5 million, you could redo the track, do the field. The lights are there already, and do an appropriate aluminum stand, and put up sort of ground level, you know.
I don't exactly know the scope of the project, but I know
It's huge, it's huge, it's huge. It's $7.5 million what they're estimating. And it's not that kind of school. That's crazy.
Is there a way to raise these
But
chairs?
I used to coach football too, so I did football for 8 years as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm done with that too. I'm done with football altogether. So,
Same height, doesn't make a difference.
okay, so listen, we've got a quiz. 10 minutes, we're starting. If people aren't here, vamos, put your name on it. Close your books, close your books, close your books, close your notes. Close your books, close your notes. Let me not give you the answers, right? So let's not give you the answers. Okay, here you go, Brian.
Yeah, right.
Put your name on it. Put your name on it. And if people aren't here, they're come. Get papers. Get papers. Get papers. Start, guys. Start. Miriam, here you go.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks.
These guys, we already started a minute late. But we just went over most of this stuff. Oh no, number 8 was in the video.
Do we come to you for the quiz?
You can come. You guys are late already. You don't get any extra time.
Okay,
So, you guys are late. You guys take time. Works. Sorry. No, right there. Look. That's official Nova time. OMT. 3:20 OMT. Book's closed. Come on, you can't have the book open while you got taking the quiz. You can't have your notes out when you're taking the quiz, man. Come on. You want me to be like the nun and pull out a ruler and start whacking your hands? 5 more minutes, okay? Okay, 4 minutes, guys. And gals. Three minutes. You got your name on it?
Yeah.
Don't forget, it's hard for me to grade if you. Minutes. Two minutes. Should wrap up in a minute. In a minute, I need the sheets back because we need to move on, please. Thank you.
Are we dead?
Yeah, you gotta be quick with the pen.
That's okay. You can recover. You can recover. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I only wrote like 2 questions. Yeah. Quick explanation.
Okay. All right, is everybody?
Forgot it. No, I got them right, but I described it instead of naming it.
Okay, I just, you're cold. No, and you're Chase.
Correct.
Okay, and you're also Bob. And you're Jacqueline?
No, I am.
Oh, you're Jacqueline, okay. Naisha. Got it. And you're Bashar.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Who are you?
I'm Sam.
Coño. You're Sam Baton.
Yes.
And you're Judson? And you're Connor? Laurel Lee. I'll get it. L'Oreal.
You should just rewrite it on the sheet.
No, it says that. It says
Like phonetically, right?
I tried to put it phonetically, but it didn't work.
Not L'Oreal, right?
Not L'Oreal, no. L'Oreal. L'Oreal? That's L'Oreal. Okay, no, the only thing I was going to show, I keep going back to this slide thing. So, this is just a way that I had, so this is just a different way that I broke down different asset classes. And what I definitely added stuff that the book didn't really go into. Because real estate is like the second oldest business in the world, right? Because whatever the oldest business was needed to have a venue for it to be, done, right? So
exactly.
So
brilliant.
No, it is. I mean, but anyway, look. So when we talk about residential, the book didn't really go into it. Talk about land development. Didn't really talk about like single-family homes or something. It didn't talk about timeshare, which is a huge industry here in Florida and in certain parts of the Caribbean. Okay. It didn't really get into athletic space, golf courses, athletic clubs, fitness centers, family entertainment centers. I didn't get into that. That's what are a lot of the mall operators backfilling dark space, from the Sears and the Bontons and all these other large with fitness facilities and other sort of entertainment type centers. We didn't get into a whole other asset class, which are timberlands, right, and cropland. So that's an asset class for people to invest in. Mines. In Florida, that's another huge business. Drive down the turnpike into Dade County, and what do we think all those lakes are? What do you see those lakes? The Lake District? They're mines. They get rock out of there. Coño, where do you think the rock in your projects come from?
Turnpike, right?
Yeah, right off the turnpike.
It's like they still.
F word in Spanish.
And you still feel the vibration. So in Florida, because the water table is so close, when they blast, right, and they take the rock out, you get, the water fills it, right? But you got to be innovative. So definitely, and the state, in a lot of places, mineral rights are reserved by governments. So whether it's oil you're going to extract, or rock, or precious metals, or whatever. Are we looking at this yet, or no?
No.
We're not looking at this yet? No. Guys, hello, are we looking at this yet, or no? Thank you. So the states reserve the mineral rights. In the state of Florida, unless you specifically get a waiver from the state, typically most deeds will reserve the rights of whatever minerals there are underneath the land to the state. So we talk about there's people who create mines and have lakes, and then what do other people do with some of the lakes?
Infill it.
They fill them with like debris.
So the top golf is built on top of a mine?
The top, so that's one of our former developments. That's actually built on top, that specific part of the site You're saying the top golf on by across Dolphin Mall?
The rail, and the rail,
Yeah, so that's built on top of a former illegal landfill. So there was an illegal landfill there. A lot of the parks in Miami, the city of Miami, you've heard lately there's a lot of arsenic.
Yeah.
And they want to build the soccer park, and they can't do it because there's a lot of arsenic in Grapeland Park. Why do you think there's a lot of arsenic in Grapeland Park? Or in what's the field, I forget, the one on 20th and 20th? Because a lot of the city of Miami parks are built on former illegal landfills. And people would take a lot of like ash and stuff and bury it there. You got all kinds of special purpose buildings, churches, cemeteries. That's another real estate business, believe it or not. It's land and then you subdivide it, you know? I mean, these are all, there's a couple of publicly traded companies that are cemeteries.
Yep.
And they throw, and Stonemore, they throw off like a nice cash flow, okay? So, listen, there's all kinds, anything that's, space you could find a use for. So, anyway, listen, I sent links to 4 videos. Those videos tried to cover, I'm going to do in 30 minutes what those 2 hours covered. So I obviously am not going to cover everything that is in that. So when you hit Excel, so the first thing is when you hit Excel, you're going to get like old files that come up and all that, but let's just get a blank sheet. I'm going to come back and go through a couple of things on this particular tab. I want to go through some very top level stuff in Excel. Some of this stuff, for some of you guys, is going to be like, why is he telling me this stuff? But some people may not know it, okay? And so I just want to make sure that I cover. I want to go slower rather than faster, okay? A couple of things that I think are important on basically your home page. Let's go to options for a second. And when you come over here to options, you're going to see that you've got an opportunity to create certain defaults for your fonts and for your point sizes, okay? You're also going to have an option for the number of sheets. By default, Excel typically has 3 sheets. I've changed mine, I only have 1. You can have as many as you want, okay? You can have as many as you want. But, you got your username and all, there's all kinds of stuff in there, but definitely in general, that's one that I wanted to highlight, okay?
How did you get to that tab?
So it's basically the home, so hold on.
Can you do it, please?
Come here, hit File, and then go to Options. Okay? Okay, so Miriam, if you go to File, all the way at the bottom. I don't know what version you're on, but this is pretty old now. I mean, unless you're like...
Welcome
to macOS. You got it?
No, I don't have it.
Yeah, we're using the newest, so.
Are you using, so I've now, this is what the university provides us, it's the whatever 365.
No, they're on Mac, that's why. It may be different.
Oh, dude, that Mac. Oh, no.
I think it's in preferences, so go to Excel.
Oh, my goodness. You've gone to the dark side.
That's to the right. So go to Excel. Click into Excel.
Let's go to...
If you go on preferences, you get to like this thing here.
Preferences.
Okay, so see that's... Okay, so that's...
What do you do after this?
They're not going to be... So listen, Excel in Mac is not going to be exactly like Excel in a Windows environment, and it is, and Excel is an Intel chip focused product. Okay, so it's going to have a little bit more functionality in Microsoft Windows than it's going to have in Excel in Mac.
Same thing with the Google Sheets too.
Okay, I don't know. I don't use Google Sheets, but so anyway, so formulas. So here's another one that I want to go into formulas here. When you take a look at, what you want to make sure is you've got plenty of iterations. So there's a couple of things. If you've got a really heavy mathematical calculation or heavy mathematical calculations, you may want to opt to have manual recalculations. Because every time you change something in the sheet, Excel recalculates everything in the sheet. If you've got like hundreds or thousands of calculations, and you got like heavy-duty data tables and stuff, it's going to really slow down your sheet. There you would go and hit manual recalculation. 99.9% of the time, you're fine with it just having automatic calculations. And what you definitely want it to have is you want to enable iterative calculations, okay? You want it to be able to go to, like in my, I don't know why this changed, because I must have hit something, because I had it up until like the 10,000s, okay? So if you look at the video, I actually had this enabled, okay? And I had this like, so this, all this does is going to give you greater accuracy, okay, in all of your calculations. Ken, you had a question.
No, I had it at 1,000. You answered my question.
Okay.
10,000.
All right. So I put it there, okay?
10,000.
Yeah, that's where I put it. Now you don't have to go that far, but just you know, I just want good. Now data.
What about the maximum change?
Is there a way to be able to zoom into the screen?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. I can do this. Not on this one. I don't think. I can zoom the sheet, but I can't zoom this one. Okay? I can't zoom this one. But if you have a question, Sam, somebody asked a question here.
Yes.
What was the question?
The maximum change. How many decimal points?
I don't know how many you could put.
No, I mean, how many do you have?
I'm like at the 10,000s. I've got 4 zeros. I had 4 zeros. I don't know why this changed. That's where I was. I was like in the 10,000s. Okay?
Okay.
Now, other things. Data. Okay? I don't really have anything really focused here. Everything's like whatever came to default. Proofing, okay, and language is where you could set the dictionaries that you want. I use Spanish a lot, so I always have the Spanish dictionary enabled. But you can enable, just like you would with Word, you can enable whatever dictionary you want. Along those lines, I want to go on ahead now. Here, when you get to, let me just jump ahead. You should never, go to review, you should never submit a spreadsheet without doing spell check. Okay? In Excel, people tend to forget that. People do that a lot with Word, and you get spreadsheets with all kinds of errors in them. So always do spell check on your spreadsheets, okay? Now, let's go back to options, because there are a couple other things I wanted to show you. So on save, I've got it set up every 10 minutes it auto saves. You should get into the habit, every couple minutes you should be saving your file. You should never do a lot of work without saving your file. If you have autosave, you lose power, the computer saves, next time you pop the program up, it'll bring the last saved version. So at least you're creating a buffer there, or a safety zone, so that you don't lose all your work. But just as a matter of habit, you should get used to saving your file every couple of minutes. You can here also set default locations for where you want the file to be saved. Which doesn't mean you can't save it anywhere else, but it's just one less keystroke, okay? Advanced. There wasn't anything. Here's what I want to add in, is where I wanted to get to. Okay, so here, hold on. Let me go to customize ribbon. So the ribbon that you see up here, in my particular spreadsheets, is a combination of two things. What came standard, number one, and number two, buttons that I've added along the way. So as you work, and all of a sudden you find that there's tasks that you use all the time, you could just come over here to customize ribbon, and you can create any one of these things, and it'll put the button there for you. So that way you can go straight to the task without having to right click or go to a particular part of the ribbon, okay, to pull it down, okay? So, I mean, I've got quite a bit set up.